Welcome, everybody, to the Uncovering Anomalies Podcast. We have a really special show for you here today. That is, I Have a Need to Know Adam.
Hey, everyone.
I am the 9 out of 10 Topher, and we're joined by a very special guest, the 9 out of 11 Revisionist, 9/11 Revisionist.
Norman, welcome.
Also,
thank you for having me, gents.
Thank you so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a subject we've always been interested in. I think we did a show last year, but it's just us going through different documentaries that have come up and the different theories, but we didn't really make up our minds, or or had a very solid decision on what went on that day. But I think with you, with how deep you've gone into the research, and we'd like to, I guess, present the evidence, right? This is the important thing. We want to present the evidence without really presenting a theory first with evidence to follow.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so, I mean, thank you for coming on the show. This is, thank you for your time as well. And we'd like to understand more about you, what got you here, what got you on this journey. And so, I mean, what really got you interested in 9/11? What was the event or the information that you said, listen, there's something really wrong here? Because I think we were mostly, all of us were kind of young when this happened. I was in my 20s when 9/11 happened. I was completely oblivious to the world. I knew that there was powers and power play going on, but I didn't really understand world and political dynamics when it happened. And it took me, I would say it took me about a year or two to start questioning what's going on. I'll ask you that. Like, what got you on this road and on this journey?
Well, obviously, I saw everything happening that day. It was, I just thought that, okay, fine, that is a little bit crazy. 2 little planes flew into these huge, massive buildings, and then all of a sudden, poof, they just turned into dust. And then the TV told us that's a collapse. And
right.
Okay, I've never really investigated building demolitions or collapses or anything like that. So if the TV tells me that's a collapse, then that must be a collapse. And we were watching the live CNN stuff, and we had the Harley shirt guy who came up and said, yeah, well, it was due to the massive inferno of the jet fuel that weakened the steel. And then all of a sudden it just collapsed. Yeah. If you see something on the TV, you just take it at face value, and that's pretty much it.
Especially back then, you're right.
Yeah, definitely.
And seeing that I'm in South Africa, it didn't really influence anything for me that intensely at all, and life just went on. I thought, okay, fine. If this is a terrorist attack with the Pentagon and all of that, then obviously America's going to go and blow half of the world to smithereens. So it might be the third world happening, or what, a third world war starting. But yeah, let's see what happens. And pretty much not much happened. We heard about the guys going to Iran and Iraq and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, whatever. My life went on, and then by 2004, 2005, YouTube went online. And I really loved my conspiracy-tainment, if you want to call it that. I saw the September clues in plain sight. The guys talking about the pod underneath the planes. The guys talking about maybe it's some sort of UFO, because there was this bald thing that the guys were talking about. Eventually, I rocked upon Richard Gage, and I can still remember the first time that I saw his video. He was standing there in his little suit and his tie, so he's obviously somebody with authority because he's suited up. Talking with these 2 cardboard cutouts, and the one is a solid cardboard cutout, the other one is just a piece, and he lets it drop, and he says, well, that's how quickly the towers went down. And I'm like, okay, fine. So it went as fast as gravity. So obviously there must be something that took out the bottom the building, and then I saw the experiments done by John Cole with the thermite cutting through steel beams and this huge light show. And eventually I stumbled upon a presentation by a lady who started off her presentation stating, well, you've got to look at all the evidence, and once you've looked at all the evidence, then you can surmise what the evidence points you to. And she said, well, in this presentation, I'm going to prove to you that these buildings turned to dust before they even could hit the ground. And I basically thought, okay, good, woman, but you a bit cuckoo if you want to make a statement like that, because nothing that I can conceptualize or know about can actually do something like that. But I'm open-minded enough. I'm in the conspiracy-tainment aspect of my life. I sat through a 2.5-hour presentation, and everything she said was relevant, because she wasn't just talking about the Twin Towers or Building 7. She was talking about buildings 3, 4, 5, 6, and the Bankers Trust. And the damage to those buildings could not be explained by any thermal or kinetic mechanism. And then she also mentioned other aspects like the Earth's magnetic field, Hurricane Erin, that nobody actually knew about and was only mentioned with the 10th anniversary. And
yeah, Oh, well, I was going to say, I mean, so nobody knows about this hurricane, right? I mean, and maybe we can get into that as well, because it was just swept under the rug. It was, especially when you look at the news clips, it was a big deal on a Monday. Wasn't it Monday the day before? They're like, we got a big hurricane coming in, and then
this
all of
is
a
actually
sudden,
the first I'm hearing about this, to be honest.
it's crazy.
This.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, and by the way, Topher's coming in here blind. This is on purpose, so he can see the evidence and and react to it.
Adam sent me all the links that we're going to discuss and talk about today, and I made the very controversial choice not to look at any of them, because I want to come into this. I mean, I'm already, on the conspiracy side. I don't think 9/11 was just some randos hijacking planes and flying them into towers, and that's the end of the story. But I want to come into this as blind as I can.
So tell us about that. What happened?
So basically, she mentioned all of this, and I thought, okay, this woman has got a qualifications as long as my arm in structural engineering, and all of this kind of stuff. So if she's talking about all of this and all these anomalies that can't be explained by a little bit of jet fuel in a building, then people should be able to listen to the evidence and then support the woman. And then I pretty much forgot about it. Then we can fast forward to 2019, and we all know what happened in December 2019. All of a sudden, this whole pandemic thing broke out, and I ended up getting onto various truther forums and especially Telegram, and we had a local podcast. Cartoonist turned podcaster who got cancelled from all his jobs and fired and everything, because he was talking against the narrative at that stage, saying that maybe this whole thing is a farce. And eventually he got me into talking about 9/11 in some of his groups. I ended up writing 2-3 articles for his website, and I then also figured out that maybe I don't know as much as I need to know, because I can remember what was shared in this 2012 Breakthrough Energy Conference by Dr. Wood. And I then entered into some debate forums on Facebook, saw that there are still people that deny the evidence that was presented by Dr. Wood. And I then decided, okay, fine, I now need to revisit all the narratives from the get-go. And I worked through everything. Like anybody who's talking about thermite, talking about nukes, buried nukes, Dmitry Kalizov, who did a 10-hour YouTube presentation on why it's buried nukes, behind Spommer, everything. And still, after going through all of that, I could see that the evidence presented by Dr. Wood is irrefutable. And I then decided, okay, in 2023, I saw that there was a resurgence of Richard Gage going on to a lot of podcasts. And what I also noticed is the people that he had on his podcast, because he just then got kicked out of architects and engineers
Right.
for 9/11 Truth because he was going against the COVID narrative.
Yep, exactly. I guess his board didn't like that, right?
Yeah. But the people he was talking to all did their research like 15 years prior. So all that they were doing is they were just dusting off their old stuff and presenting it as if it's some new relevant information. And I then decided, okay, fine, I'm going to go into some of these Zoom calls, question and answer sessions, and then ask them questions pertaining to Dr. Wood's work in relation to the evidence that they were presenting. And they floundered beautifully in their answers. And I even made a 2-hour documentary where you can see all these interactions where I would ask the question, they would have their reprieve, and I would then debunk their reprieve on whatever they answered.
Yeah.
And since then, I've just started then writing my Substack articles and keeping an eye on the real-time repivoting of this 9/11 truth movement, because in 2023 a new organization all of a sudden sprouted up, and it's called the International Center for 9/11 Justice, run by Ted Walter. And there's another guy, Piers Robinson. He's affiliated with two organizations called Propaganda in Focus and something else. So these guys are touted as people who would point out propaganda, but these guys are at the same time promoting propaganda.
Right.
So, and they were following my Substack. They were following 9/11 Planes Research. We'll talk about him a little bit later. And Richard Gage even follows 9/11 Planes Research Substack. So these guys are not people that you can actually trust.
That's nuts. And I saw, and we'll go through some of those clips about the history of Gage and Stephen Jones as well. Which is out there and it's open. For anyone, for everyone to see. It's not like it's hidden information. So that's amazing. I mean, it's not an easy fight. Obviously, Dr. Judy Woods was ostracized from the 9/11 Truth movement completely, which should raise everyone's alarm bells and flags and saying, why are they ignoring her? Right? Her book is just an amazing book. When did it come out? Where the towers?
2010.
2010. Oh wow! And when was her lawsuit?
And since then, her request for correction was in 2007, and we've got to backtrack a bit, because in 2005, James Fetzer and Stephen E. Jones basically formed Scholars for 9/11 Truth. That was pretty much when everybody started thinking, okay, fine, there must be something wrong with the official narrative. That's before most of the documentaries and stuff also came out. And that was a way of pulling in everybody who's questioning the narrative. And that's when the infighting already started. During the infighting, Dr. Wood then met Dr. Morgan Reynolds. He eventually also filed a QTAM whistleblower case and a request for correction to NIST for the fraudulent plane impact studies into the towers. Dr. Wood filed her QTAM and request for correction to NIST in 2007 as well for the damage at the World Trade Centers. And strangely enough, after Dr. Wood filed her initial QTAM case, then 3 weeks later, all of a sudden, the Architects for Engineered Truths website sprouted up. And when they went around and submitted their request for correction, there was no mention of thermite or molten metal in their request for correction to NIST.
You're kidding me.
That's the
So,
two stalwart talking points that they've been selling people
yeah,
for the last 20 years. Um,
right.
and they've never taken any of the explosive evidence to court. Yes, Richard Gage is talking about this whole crime scene to courtroom thing, but
Mhm.
it's a show. It's not a
Yeah,
real court
yeah.
Yeah.
thing.
It's this the grand jury one, right? They did some
Yeah,
grand jury that didn't
yeah.
really go anywhere.
It's a made for TV thing where they've got a couple of ex judges or whatever that's just entertaining them,
Yeah.
but it's nothing official.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which is not helpful. And there's a big, like you said, there's a big resurgence again with Richard Gage, or at least he was on Redacted the other day, which is a
Yeah.
huge show, right, in this space conspiracy, and he did a complete presentation on that. So he left Architects for Engineer, then he created his another organization, correct? Is it
Yeah,
or
Richard
is
Gage
Architect gone?
Unleashed.
Uh,
Yeah,
oh
he
yes,
was
yes,
running
yes.
under Richard Gage Unleashed.
Yeah, yeah, and we're seeing everywhere. And we were talking earlier that now he has debated Fetzer last night, which I have not. I still have to watch, and it's probably maybe we'll go. Maybe if we can go through some of that. So I guess tell us, what are the theories of what happened that day?
The main three narratives is your government narrative that it's Muslim hijackers that flew planes into the buildings. The official government counter narrative has got a couple of levels. So it's either CGI planes, possibly,
Mm-hmm.
or remote control planes, or switched planes with drones, or then with the destruction mechanisms to the buildings, it's either bombs and thermite, and then the counter to that is nukes buried in the basements, or nukes in the basements and mini nukes spread through the buildings.
Yeah.
And then you've got Dr. Wood and Dr. Morgan Reynolds, who basically pointed out that the impact dynamics of Flight 175, because there isn't a lot of data that you can run off Flight 11 that went into the North Tower, but they showed that the impact dynamics, the speed, the approach speeds, and all of that is impossible. And then you've got Dr. Wood, who basically states that it was a cold event. There was no heat, and she also then proves that the narratives around the ongoing smoke for 100 days after 9/11 that kept going was actually ongoing metal transmutation due to the directed energy weapon technology that was incorporated. And there is more than sufficient evidence proving that rubble pile was cold.
That is amazing.
Wow.
Even though this people are saying that like their shoes were melting, right? And the people who would say there was a nuke point to that, right?
Yeah.
What is that called? Is it
Both
Chinese syndrome or
Fetzer and Richard Gage were both proponents of ongoing heat
right?
in their debate and their presentations leading up to the debate. But there is more than ample evidence going back to when Stephen E. Jones was actually pushing that initially, because Richard Gage basically took over from Stephen E. Jones, and the initial papers that Jones wrote trying to point out heat has been debunked and shown how he actually edited videos to make it appear as if there was heat. There's this one picture where you've got a bunch of firemen who are seemingly looking into this hot cauldron of rubble, and you actually have a video where you can see that it was a spotlight that they had close to the area, and all he did is he put on a yellow filter over it to make it seem like it's some glowing metal.
That's insane.
That's just one of the many deceptive things that he employed initially in 2006.
So I mean, it's a scary thought that back all the way in 2001 that we had technology that was able to basically dustify one of the largest and tallest buildings in the world, right, at free fall speed. And I guess it would make sense if you want to scare the world into saying, all right, we're taking over. We're going to do what we want. We are the sole superpower and you can't do anything about it. And, I guess that would be one way to just like the mob, right? It'll be one way to do it. It's like, this is what we did. And I'm sure governments knew, and other intelligence agencies knew what really went on. I mean, I'm right. Like Russia, I'm sure Russia knew, China knew, which is also strange why they don't come out with the evidence. Because it's insane to most people.
Yeah, or we'll do to Moscow what we did in New York City.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
The main thing is you can actually go back to a investigative report that was broadcast on CNN in 1985, where they were doing a piece on RF weaponry, and a Colonel Tom E. Bearden, if you do a little bit of research into free energy and everything, he was on the program where he was showing satellite pictures from 1977 of cold, what seemed to be nuclear explosions, but not nukes as you would perceive it, which would extract energy from a distant point, like Nikola Tesla would want to do with his Wardenclyffe Tower, and then the Tunguska event that a lot of people say Tesla basically overshot the North Pole because he wanted to break some ice there, and that's why you've had the Tunguska event.
That's insane.
And that was in 1985, and Tom E. Bearden was talking about that, and that was on mainstream bloody news in 1985. And
wow.
In the 80s, you had this huge technological
explosion,
push,
I guess.
And by 89, you had Ronald Reagan talking about the Star Wars program, and they actually said that they were successful in it. And by the early 90s, everything just went quiet. Didn't hear about it, never knew about it, and whatever. So again, from 1989 till 2001, what more could they have done in another 10 years? And there's another gentleman that comes into play, and that's John Hutchinson. And he was doing weird, strange things in the late 1970s. And even the US military went to his lab in 1983, checked out what he was able to do for 3 months, and later they set him up in Los Alamos in 1986. That's what was whilst Stephen E. Jones, Captain Thermite, was there, and Hutchinson even worked on the Star Wars program.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you can actually go watch a 2012 investigative report documentary type thing that Jesse Ventura did. The episode was called Tesla's Death Ray or something like that, where he introduces John Hutchinson, and he was talking about thinking like 12 people in the Star Wars program was taken out, and they then double checked and found that 22 of the Star Wars program scientists just died mysteriously and all of that. So it's cloak and dagger stuff that's come over decades.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and we go into the UFO UAP field and secret technology and exotic technologies and a breakaway civilization, and when you look at the evidence, especially you talk about you said in the 80s they were talking about this. So there you had
John Hutchinson was a self-taught tinkerer. He basically got a bunch of ex-naval army surplus tech. And he was really, really amused with the work of Nikola Tesla, because there's another professor, I can't remember, Prungjuktar or something. There's a video of him talking in the 1980s in the 1980s, talking about the technology and what Tesla was able to do. And he relates back to the things that Tesla was actually giving to the US military, but they were keeping it hush hush. And he mentioned that how Tesla was able to make physical objects disappear. He was talking about how he could gellify metal, how he could levitate metal, how he could make metal just fracture, and then how metal would also end up glowing what seemed to be white hot,
Huh.
but it was cold to the touch.
So what is
And
that, plasma? When that happens, or plasma's hot, right?
it's basically how he did it is he took 3 Tesla coils, created a static field, and when he surged the juice through these Tesla coils, or even Van de Graaff stuff, all these weird things happened to all these metals. And what Hutchinson ended up doing by the late 70s is he replicated it.
Yeah.
And then with John Hathaway, heard about it, and at some or other way, it ended up with Colonel John Alexander, who was at
Hmm.
Los Alamos. And if you've ever watched the movie Men Who Stare at Goats
Yeah.
he was the guy who was going into all these weird and wonderful alternative um, technologies and stuff. And he had a nice, wonderful 5-hour podcast with Sean Ryan in August of 2024, where he went through all of these weird things. And he too confirmed that he saw how Hutchinson would be able to create with the warping and jellifications of metal and have things glow white hot, but it's cold to the touch.
That's
And
so
that's
crazy.
just surging energy through it.
Yeah, and that's just one guy, right? He doesn't have the military industrial complex behind him. So are we
Correct.
saying they scaled this technology to a point where they can take down skyscrapers?
Well, John Hutchinson, with Dr. Wood's court case filed in 2007, he actually wrote an affidavit basically stating that this is the technology, the Hutchinson effect is what I created, what I named it. And the military industrial complex has been visiting my lab, corresponding with me since the early 80s. And what he then felt is it's something similar but scaled up to a great extent. And even when he left Canada for a while to go to Germany, I think, all of a sudden the Canadian government came in and took all his equipment and said it was due to national security. And
Oh
there's a lot
my
of people
god.
out there that will tell you, no, but his stuff can't be replicated or anything like that. But in the 90s, when people got wind of this, a hell of a lot of TV companies and everything came to his lab, and he replicated it numerous times. Some other people also replicated it as well. So whenever you search Hutchinson, the first things that you would get is the debunk videos or defamation
Yeah.
videos or articles about that. But he replicated numerous times, and all his metals have been sent across the world for people to test. And if you YouTube the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, has got, I think, a playlist of over 300 videos where they actually do the analyzing of the metal samples that they've gotten their hands on.
That is so, and so you're
So
saying he
you
just
can't
had
say it's
3
bunk.
Tesla. Yeah. And he used 3 Tesla coils basically in some configuration, and that's how he was able to do this. I mean, is this go back to Tesla's beam weapon that he wrote about, that he wanted to give
Yeah,
the
he wrote
superpowers?
about that. Apparently, there was stories that he was sending some of the schematics and everything to various countries in, I think, the late 1930s,
Yeah.
telling them, like, look, the reason why he sent it to different countries because he didn't want anybody to really have a leg up on it. And then if
Yeah,
you
a
go back
monopoly.
to what Bierden said in 85 is that it was the Soviets that were doing these experiments on, well, that they were keeping abreast of with their satellites. And then in 2006 there was another gentleman that came out with the name of Dean Warwick, and he was linked to British MI5, MI6, and his grandfather had something to do with it. And they were talking about how in the late 50s, the guys were playing around with this technology, and they were dustifying buildings of 25 stories when they
Whoa.
were testing this stuff out. He mentioned that on a radio show. Then around about a month or two later, he was doing a presentation. He would have gone into who killed Bobby Kennedy and all of that. He mentioned that earlier the day he's got a bad premonition at one stage, and this is also mentioned in that Jesse Ventura.
That was a great show. Was it?
documentary.
Yeah. Was it called True TV or something? Right, where
True
Jesse
TV,
was.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And then what happened to Dean Warwick is we were still busy with his presentation. He then said, "No, but I feel a warm feeling against my head," and then all of a sudden he just keeled over and dropped dead. And
What?
people in the auditorium said, "Well, there was a person that then got up, walked out, was whistling a tune. Somebody followed him, and whilst he was getting into a vehicle, he just then was laughing his ass off as he was getting into the vehicle." So
what year was that?
that was 2006.
Early on. Holy shit! So obviously he was talking about something that was too dangerous to be told to people.
Yeah, because in the radio show, he was talking about the illusion technology that was used for the planes that impacted the towers. Because it's 3D volumetric projection technology. There's a lot of people who've done the research, who found the patents. A very good documentary to watch that's in-depth researched is 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality.
That is a
by
great
Chris Hampton, Richard D. Hall, Mark Conlon, a.k.a. 9/11 Planes Revisionist, with information from Dr. Wood, and then Andrew Johnson, and a bunch of the 9/11 truthers that you are not supposed to know about.
Right. So what's Dr. Wood doing now? Is she just living a quiet life?
She is living the quiet life, tending her garden and looking after her chickens.
Very cute. She is a brilliant woman, but she's also just such a nice, cute soul. You know what I mean? She never talks anything bad about anyone, even though she was treated horribly by the community. But you don't see any videos of her talking smack about anyone else. She just sticks to the subject.
I'll do it on her behalf.
Yes, we'll help you in that as well. And because Stephen Jones, and you sent me some of this information, and he's the one who came out with the thermite theory initially, correct? And so he's from Brigham Young University, right? He was a professor there, and he was a contractor, a military contractor. Some interviews sent or shared said that he was part of the DIA. Defense Intelligence
and he also
Agency.
worked for the Department of Energy. Now,
shit.
Stephen E. Jones has got a bit of a checkered past, because in the 80s there was a huge push for hot fusion, because the guys were looking for some new form of energy, because that was the big hoo-ha of, we're going to run out of oil, people. We need to find something new, because in 10 years oil is going to be finito. So billions and billions and billions were siphoned into various universities where they wanted to recreate the sun, and nobody was able to get excess heat or excess energy out of their experiments. Whilst this was going on, two guys were tinkering on their own time, and they were named Pons and Fleischmann, and they then figured out a low energy nuclear reaction without ionizing radiation, which Stephen E. Jones dubbed as cold fusion. And then they could prove that the amount of energy that they were putting into this device would actually exert more energy. So that's a kind of free energy aspect.
Right.
And when they went public with this, all of a sudden, what they were doing is they were rewriting the laws of physics. And that's when Stephen E. Jones called a press conference with a bunch of other physicists and everything. And he basically said, okay, guys, you're sitting here on the table, and do you think this is feasible? Yes or no? If you say no, raise your hand. And then they did a science by vote. And then, unfortunately, the next day, the Exxon Valdez disaster happened. And you know how the news cycle just
Right.
loves
Hmm.
drama, and that's basically how cold fusion got put onto the back burner. And basically, those two gentlemen's careers were basically railroaded and ended, and they couldn't get any funding. And then you can fast forward a bunch of years, and you can go search this on YouTube. It was a short clip done by 60 Minutes. Cold fusion is hot again, where they have
Hmm.
a independent physicist go through the data with guys doing the research in Israel and then in America as well. And they come to him and he says, "Oh well, but I thought that was debunked." And they said, "No, but we just want you to go into this neutral and just see if it's feasible or not." And when after he crunched the numbers, they basically he just said, "But yes, it's correct, and you shouldn't outsource your thinking to other people. Go through the data, go through the evidence, and then you'll see that it's true." And that's exactly what you have to say with regards to 9/11, because if you
Yeah.
go into what Gage says, what Fetzer says, what all these guys say, they slack directed energy weapons, but they don't actually ever address any of the evidence. Um, and then also, whilst in that 60 Minutes, but they got a hold of the Department of Defense document where the Pentagon themselves were busy researching cold fusion as well, because that is a new type of energy. And if each one of us actually have a small little fusion reactor in our house, you'll never
Hmm.
pay for electricity again. If you put a small little cold fusion reactor in your vehicle, you'll never have to recharge it again. And we know, with regards to the 1951 Invention Secrecy Act,
Yep.
any type of invention that can threaten establishment like big power or big oil or anything like that, it gets deemed a threat to national security. And there's over 6,000 patents that are being kept from us. You
Or
might have
National
noticed.
security.
it gets
Yeah,
bought by a bigger company and then
yeah,
put on a shelf somewhere.
yeah, yeah.
But I can't believe we have legislation like that. It's just, I mean, whose national security? How can new technologies and progress in energy, affect national security, as in the nation and the people, right? So what it's affecting is oligarchs and already people who already are in power or were in power in the 40s and post World War II United States. It's like they got into power after World War II, won the war, and wanted to stay in power in perpetuity, right? And have used events and different false flags and legislation to keep themselves entrenched in power. And I don't think wealth is an issue anymore for them. They just want more and more power. COVID is that. It's like the same people, or it's the same spirit, I would say, behind
Yeah.
all of this, that's put us on this unfortunate path. So I didn't know Stephen Jones did that. So if he debunked cold fusion back then he was debunking or trying to distract from other evidence
Yeah.
that what happened in 9/11 with this thermite story,
Yeah,
right?
100%. And that's what's so strange, because all his thermite aspects or whatever, even the big thermite paper that Gage
Mm-hmm.
even referred to like yesterday, was refuted basically as quickly as as it was published. And it was actually done in a pay to publish journal that only published like four papers a year. And people actually submitted papers to that journal that were complete and utter bullshit, but they just wanted to prove a
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
after that paper actually was published in that journal, two of the editors resigned. If you've been
Huh.
following the COVID aspect, even if you know Denis Rancourt,
Mm-hmm.
out of France, he was confirmed in a 2020 science debate on thermite exactly what was wrong with that paper, because the so-called thermite that they found, or the aluminium that they found in the dust,
Mm-hmm.
was tainted due to the way that they were doing their experiment, because they used an aluminium slug to put the dust on. So if you do that, you will always get an aluminium trace in
Of course.
the samples and stuff. So he
Yeah.
debunked that, and many people have, but people just keep on believing that. So remember what Goebbels said in World War II: repeat a lie, repeat it often enough, and later on it becomes the truth.
Yeah,
And that's
that's what our
exactly what
government
Gage
does.
has been doing for the last 20 years.
Engage, yeah. So what are we saying about the microthermite that they found, or is there no microthermite? Did they like you said, I mean, if it's tainted with aluminum, they could taint it with thermite as well. Is that what we're saying in the soil samples, at least what I remember?
First thing is, what is thermite comprised of?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
It's basically aluminium powder and the other metal. I just can't remember the name now. But the thing is, the building was made out of, it had a lot of steel in it, and the outside of the buildings were aluminium cladding. So what did they actually find in the dust? They find the remnants of the actual building. The aspects with this unignited nanothermite or whatever that they talk about is absolute bull, because it's fraudulent dust sample studies that just doesn't fit the narrative. And even in the paper, they basically said that thermite could not take it down because thermite is an incendiary.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, if you look at what thermite does, I've got a short little clip that I've shared previously. If you take like 100 pounds of thermite and you ignite that, then it is a hell of a light show. It's fizzing and spitting and making huge explosions. But did we see a second sun when the buildings went down? Because the calculations from Niels Harrit, who co-authored the paper with Stephen E. Jones, calculated that if they were to use thermite, which no controlled demolition company actually ever uses, thermite can cut through steel. Yes, they proved that, but it's actually just something that they use for underwater welding. But if you had to place it strategically through the two buildings, for each and every tower, you would need 29,000 metric tons of thermite.
Okay. All right.
So how do you get that into a building? Never mind.
Yeah.
Also, all the fittings that you had to do, because if you go back to John Cole's thermite experiments that you can find very easily, and you look at the contraption that they use around a steel beam, so you need all those fittings, and then you need 29,000 metric tons of thermite for each building. How do you get it in there? You're not going to have it get it into the building with 1 weekend prior to it where there was a lights out or a security blackout or whatever in the buildings.
It's I mean, that's the story, right? The story is like there was security. There was 2 weeks, I think, of no security. How would they just put it on the supporting columns? And we're talking about 110 stories here, and I don't know, dozens of the support columns that they'd have to go floor by floor, column by column, right? Every single one of them. And like you said, if they went off even one by one, I mean, even the fire people would say that boom, 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 boom. They would say floor by floor. But like you said, it when thermite goes off, especially in metal, it's red hot and sparking. And we didn't see any of that when the towers came down. So
there was no heat because something something you've got to keep in mind, and this is something that Kurt Weldon mentions quite often, seeing that he's an ex-fireman and everything. He mentions Oreo Palmer so many times. He was going up into the South Tower and he got up to the 87th floor where the impact was, and he basically said that there was only 2 isolated fires. We need 2 hoses and we can take it down. 3 minutes later, the South Tower collapsed or disintegrated on top of it.
Yeah.
And then there's another aspect that people don't know about, and that the 9/11 Truth Movement don't talk about, and it's been memory hold. Do
Mhm.
you know about the 16 survivors in Stairwell B of the North Tower?
I did not until you started sharing that. I mean, even though the clips were on the news, but yeah, please tell us. This is just a crazy story.
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
love to hear about that because this is new to me.
Okay. So you've got 14 first responders and you've got 2 civilians. The one civilian is called the 9/11 surfer, and you can just Google 9/11 surfer on YouTube and you'll be able to find him.
Okay.
Pascal Buscelli, sorry, I'm getting the pronunciation wrong. Sorry to the
Uh-huh.
Italian
Yeah, for
people.
Shetty
Um,
probably.
so the story with him is he was coming down from the 84th floor along with his fellow co-workers, and halfway down, round about in the 40s, he states that they bumped into a firefighter, and he told them, "Look, you guys, if you get down to the 23rd floor, there is a elevator that you guys can take down to the bottom." And that's something that stuck into his head, because when they got to the 22nd floor, then
Mhm.
all of a sudden the building started shaking something immensely. And then when that happened, the people who were with him ran into the 22nd floor. He then
Mhm.
jumped down to the next little ledge in the stairwell and curled up into a small little ball. And what he then said is, the building was shaken and everything, and he heard a rumbling like a freight
Rumbling.
train coming at him.
Huh.
And then the next moment, he just felt like he was falling. He felt himself falling through the air, and eventually he got just stopped, and um, everything was dark around him. He was being hit by debris and everything, and he passed out for a bit. And basically, when he came to and he looked up,
Mhm.
there was nothing above him.
What
Hmm.
the
Whoa.
90 stories of a 500,000-ton building filled with people, office equipment, 200,000 tons of steel
gone.
gone.
Incredible.
Just that's
And
just
all he suffered was a broken ankle, and he was back with his wife at 8 o'clock that evening. She even has her brother or somebody video recorded as he was being brought by taxi and got out, and she was pregnant at that stage. At that same time, you had the 14 first responders, and you
Mhm.
can find all their testimonies in a documentary that was made called The Miracle of Stairwell B, that came
Mhm.
out in 2006. Um,
Oh,
and
so early on.
yeah, early on, because that was also used to premedicate some of the disinformation at that stage as well. There was a lot of
Mhm.
truth in that, but they also brought in a little bit of the misinformation, because it was a psychological thing.
Yeah.
Then Mickey Cross, he mentioned that he was, I think, on the 2nd or the 4th floor, somewhere over there. And he also mentioned about the rumbling and hearing that the building was coming down. And he mentioned that he was sitting there and there was some sort of weird uh, heavy wind going up, and he had to grab onto his helmet, because it was like it was levitating and everything, and he made himself as small as a ball. And he then just said, okay, fine, if I die, it's just got to be instant and everything. And then obviously all of a sudden everything just went quiet. It was dark, and he said after a while, of all of a sudden, he just saw a streak of sunlight coming through, and he
That is
just thought,
so
but
insane.
how the hell is this supposed to happen? Because just before that happened, he was thinking, it's a 500,000-ton building, 110 stories above us. I'm alive, but it's going to take them weeks to get to us. So we're just going to die here before they can get to us. And that's the same sentiment that a bunch of the other firefighters had in that documentary. And there's another gentleman that was was talking about how he eventually could hear the radios working again. And whilst he was calling for help, telling them where his position is, he was saying, I can't remember the correct wording, but it's ladder this, we're in stairwell B, North Tower, stairwell B, North Tower. And later on, the guys just said, but where's the North Tower?
Gone. Completely
Dude,
gone.
something you've got to remember from a conventional control demolition. If you take a building down, then the expected rubble pile is 12.5% of the original building height.
The rubble that's left over is 12.5% of the building height.
Yeah, original building height. So you can go look at a 30 story Trump Tower or whatever in Las Vegas or whatever it gets taken down or whatever, and you can go do your calculations. Usually it's about 12.5%, sometimes 17%. It just depends on what the main structure of the building's about, if it's just concrete or concrete and rebar or whatever. So if you take 12.5% of 110 story buildings, that gives you 13.75 stories. And if you can think back and you go look at a picture of what the towers used to look like when they stand like this, in the bottom you've got these small little tridents with an opening before everything gets solid for the rest. And that bigger opening at the bottom of the building is around about 3 stories high, and that was the lobby height. And that is the height of what the rubble pile was. Now, what other people would want to... Sorry?
Yeah. No, I'm saying that, and there you go. That's evidence there that does not help termites or explosions or even pancake theory that collapse. I mean, so how many stories? There should be 13.5 stories left over, right?
For each and every tower, for both towers. And if you look at that rubble pile, when you've got building 6 right next to the North Tower, building 6 was a 8-story building, and it basically towers over the rubble pile of the North Tower. And that's where sick people survive. And then something else that's also very telling with regards to the narratives that gets pushed to you, because people talk about, okay, fine, the only reason that there's so little rubble is because everything was ejected laterally 600 feet in all directions. But if you look at the original layout of the World Trade Center, you had the 2 towers, and there was a courtyard or a plaza that had the Liberty Sphere in the middle, and that sphere is around about 27 feet high. And that sphere wasn't buried under any rubble. It was damaged, and it's actually been repurposed. I think you guys can still see it somewhere in New York. So 210-story buildings that supposedly went down due to jet fuel or bombs or nukes or whatever, but that sphere isn't buried under any rubble. There was actually a circle of lampposts around the sphere. And on September 12, there's a clip of firemen stating about it's 110 stories down to ground level, and the ABC News or NBC News were talking about how this fireman was walking towards what they believed to be the North Tower's antenna, but it wasn't actually an antenna. It was one of the lampposts next to the sphere, which they mistakenly thought was the antenna. That's a great clip.
This is, you shared this morning. I mean, this is speeded up, obviously, but just look at this when it starts to. Oh, look at that!
Look at this! Look at this! Because the main thing, if you look at this one minute clip of it, because let's just one thing that you've got to keep in mind when a building gets demolished, you never ever have the dust go higher than the building. And the
Right.
amount of dust, even if they say just those top floors were burning, there's too much what we perceive as smoke coming out of it. And then afterwards, the amount of dust that just keeps on going into the upper atmosphere, that's not conducive to any controlled demolition whatsoever. You can go look for any and all controlled demolitions. Nothing looks like that.
Nothing.
Wow.
No. Yeah.
No.
I mean, there is a nuke experiment that when we were doing underground nukes, that looks kind of similar to the picture on Dr. Judy Wood's book, but it's coming from underneath the ground, and it's exploding material up into the air. But then this just, and here's that spire, right? That was there.
Spire was standing there for a while, and remember, it's underneath that spire where those 16 people survived.
Oh my!
And if
God,
you go
could
look,
imagine?
if you go and that spire, because right in the foreground you've got building 7. Okay, building 7 was 47 stories, so that spire is around about 900 feet high. That gives you around about 70 stories, and that's the inner core steel beams.
Look how it just disintegrates.
It just,
yeah, there's nothing on top of it that's
It's sci-fi.
Collapsing on it. Yeah, it is.
Right.
But what people would want you to believe is that no, dust settled on it. Then some secondary explosions took that down, and that's just the dust that settled on the steel members that's falling down, and that's what people actually believe instead of just looking at the evidence. That is solid metal turning to dust right in front of your eyes. It's sci-fi. Yes, it freaks you out. It scares the living bejesus out of you, but that's the facts.
Yeah, that is the fact. And it explains so much of what's happening in the world, today, how we just have a group doing whatever they want. They don't care about accountability. COVID was part of that.
Yep.
I mean,
you still have people driving around in their cars alone with masks
on.
Yes. What is? Yeah. I mean, and they are masters of propaganda and mind control. And I don't know if you read the book. I think it's called The Most Dangerous Book in the World or something. And it was about how 9/11 was a trauma-based mind control on an
attack on
level.
human consciousness.
Yeah, it's so sad. It really is. And we're still living in some weird 9/11 time loop, I would say.
Yeah.
We're still talking about terrorists.
Worse.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it set the stage for all of all of the stuff we're going through today. All of the man, I can't find my words, but yeah, no, it totally set us up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
but we are being lied to ever since the Second World War, and even before that.
Right. Yeah. With the National Security Act coming in, creating a shadow government, and they've just gone their own way since then. Right. With secrecy. And yeah, sorry, I cut you off there, but you're right. It did start in World War II. I'll probably go back. What really destroyed us, I think, is what was the beginning of it was the Federal Reserve Act. And
1913.
And putting money into the hands, and we basically created an aristocracy, a permanent aristocracy with the Federal Reserve Act. And since then, it's just been every subsequent stabs in the back of the American people. And so, I mean, this event and what happens in the United States affects all of us. It doesn't just affect Americans, right? And I think that's why probably you also. I mean, did anything change in South Africa? I know other countries started copying us with, the Patriot Act, right? I remember when the Patriot Act was released here, that other countries started copying it. Like, oh, great, the U.S. now is spying on its people. Why not? We're going to start doing that as well. So, did you guys feel?
They were spying on the American people even before that. You had the Indico and Israel basically covering all your phone calls and everything. There was that big expose that came out in December 2001. That's now been censored off their website, where the guys were talking about these Israeli Mossad agents.
Oh, yes.
That were And
The Fox News
so
one.
that is a fact that was mentioned, but people tend to just fixate on that instead of actually realizing the role that the US military has played, and then also what the technology in play means for humanity. And that is one of my pet peeves, and I think that's also part of the psychological operation around 9/11, is to have people just say, okay, the Jews did it, but okay, what's the it that they did? There's more than
Right.
enough circumstantial evidence to point a finger to suspects, but what
Right.
does it mean to do a criminal investigation? You need to start with what happened, then you can go on to who could have done it, what happened, how did they do it, who could be responsible, and why they did it. So on some of them you can have your suspects, but you can't.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to accuse somebody of a crime or a murder, and you want to say but they were killed with a knife, then hopefully there's some stab wounds in them, because if you turn over a body and you see there's a bullet hole in it, you're not really going to win your court case, are you?
No,
And
you're
that's
right.
the thing with thermite nukes and all of that. There's no evidence for that you can actually take to court, because it's never been taken to court. That's why they haven't taken it to court. But Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Wood has got enough of all the anomalous evidence that points to a specific type of technology that was used. And that's why she put her money where her mouth is in 2007. And ever since then, a industry has been created to have people not look at the evidence that she presents.
What
All that
happened to
these
her court
guys,
case? Was it
sorry?
dismissed? What happened to her court case? Was it dismissed?
When she got to the U.S. Supreme Court, the judge basically said, "I'm ignoring the law by not hearing your case." It wasn't dismissed on merit or anything like that. The guy
Yeah.
just didn't want to listen to it, and that's what the Supreme Court does. Your courts have been captured. Most courts have been captured
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
many, 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 many years already.
Yeah.
And at that stage, there was a huge push, and that's where the never forget slogan comes in, because
Mm-hmm.
what shouldn't you forget? Should you forget the trauma or whatever? So
Right.
from the beginning, when anybody wanted to try and question the narrative around 9/11, you were made out to be unpatriotic. How
Right.
dare you soil the memory of those who lost their lives? And that's how dissent was squashed
Yeah.
from the get-go. Because
Yeah.
the
I mean,
guys who think about this, the guys who planned 9/11, do you
mm-hmm.
think they forgot to plan a cover-up and cover all their bases?
No.
So what would that cover-up look like? What if effects could go into it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's counterintelligence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so they set up all the different, and we all, I went through all of these, and they're all limited hangouts, because and they're designed to get people who question an official narrative to go into still something that's been controlled and siphoned out. Same thing with JFK as well.
Yeah.
All the JFK theories. So, what about the people that jumped to their deaths that were on the towers? So, obviously, they felt something, but you said that it's most likely something cold going on. So, are we
Yeah. The
saying that it
thing
was
is,
too? Yeah.
yeah. If you think about Edna Sintron, the waving woman,
Mm-hmm.
in the one building, you can
Mm-hmm.
see her standing at the edge of the building, holding on to the steel beams of the outer columns. And remember, a plane supposedly slammed through that whole floor that she was on. So why isn't she dead?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so that's step
Yeah.
one. Number two, if it was so bloody hot, why would she be standing there holding
Right. Right.
onto everything?
Yeah.
The other strange thing that's been pointed out. Okay, so what happens? Let's say you're in a towering inferno. The first thing that you do is you would what we've all been taught is you go to the bathroom, you wet your clothes and all of that, because because that is to save you at least from getting burned. Correct?
Correct.
And then what do we see with these people at 110 stories up or 106, 105 stories up? You see people hanging out of the building, taking off their clothes.
Oh.
Isn't that weird?
So something inside of them was cooking, or
something strange was happening. That's all that Dr. Wood can postulate, because we weren't there. So we can't say, but I don't know if you've ever heard of the active denial system.
Yes, that's the microwave one, right?
Yeah, it's the microwave that they can direct into crowds to disperse crowds, and it basically it makes you feel like it hits you into the first millimeter of your skin, and it basically feels like you're being cooked alive, and that's why it hurts like hell, and that's why you need to get out of there. And that's what she thinks could be there. There was some sort of energy aspect to the buildings, turning it into dust before it got to the point where it just went boof. And that's possibly why some of the people then elected to jump, because they just couldn't handle the pain.
Okay, and when it comes to nukes, now, do you think there is technologies of nukes or tactical nukes or some type of technology where have we ever seen them make metal and just dustify metal? I don't think we've seen any experiments or tests.
No, and in any case, there's no way that you can use a nuke, and there's no ionizing radiation being
correct,
released.
Yes.
And if there were nukes buried in the basements or wherever, why aren't the basements damaged? Because most of the basements were undamaged in the first place. And then also you would have had a corresponding seismic reading showing that something big exploded, and the seismic readings for the Twin Towers were in line with a 20 and a 16-story building hitting the ground. And there were no S or P waves. The only waves that were recorded on 9/11 were surface waves. So imagine this: a surface wave is as when weight is lifted off. So think about a conventional mattress with springs and all of that, and there are two people lying on the bed, and one person gets off. You can feel that disturbance, and that is what was registered. It wasn't a percussion of something hitting the ground, but it was more akin to the weight being lifted.
And there's
no
evidence right there.
wave.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna look for that clip where she goes through the seismic data. Of course, you mix it also with the Gage being asked that question here. Who's this on the show? Oh, wait, let me share.
23 that I call God his new wife question in a Q&A, and he failed miserably.
Yeah, and he always says, "Oh, I don't know about seismic data. That's not important." But I think this is really important. And here's Dr. Judy Wood talking about the seismic data that happened that day and how it does not match up with buildings collapsing. Correct?
Up above at the top, there's WTC1's impact on the ground. And what's below that blue data, that was an earthquake that was in Midtown Manhattan that same year. It's approximately the same magnitude. And it was a 2.4 instead of a 2.3. But you notice the signals are very, very different. Notice the high frequency in the blue signal.
Yes.
But notice that you first get the primary wave arriving, that little, it's kind of like snout leading up to the big wave. And then the secondary wave is that bigger one. But you can't see those same signals from when the towers hit. If the towers are slamming down into bedrock, they should be ringing like a tuning fork.
Right.
Here's the signal for the Tower 1. It lasted 8 seconds. It takes 9.5 seconds to throw a bowling ball off the roof and have it hit the ground below. The building went away faster than it could have fallen. It didn't hit the ground, didn't slam to the ground. That's why there's no S and P waves. There's only surface waves. And that's what you would get if you lifted the building off the ground. Think of, two people sleeping together in the same bed. One person gets up, the other person, in a conventional mattress, the other person feels the disturbance.
Right.
If you lift a 500,000 ton building off the ground, it's going to cause a surface disturbance.
Right.
That's all that was recorded. Not anything going boom on the bedrock. This is the kingdom. So here's the.
Wait, that's insane. So she's basically saying it was lifted up, or dustified. That the material was completely vanished, right, into thin air.
Yeah,
that is just such a scary, and that's evidence. She's not making it up.
You also need to listen through to this, because it also pertains to what happened to Building 7 as well, because that's the one thing that they never talk about with regards to Building 7 as well, because the anomaly with Building 7 not registering on the Richter scale as well is very, very telling. And Richard Gage and those guys spent $316,000 on debunking NIST's fire-induced collapse, but they just forgot to mention the seismic reading of Building 7.
Yeah, not important at all. It's not important evidence, and they still dismiss it to this day. Okay, let's continue with what she says.
Controlled demolition, and it produces a P wave and an S wave. So if we have Seattle Kingdom, we're going to look at things relative to that. That made a 2.3 on the Richter scale when it was blown up by controlled demolition. And we have these two towers. Let's say for the Tower 2 was the first to go. So if we turn it to dust, all but the bottom 16 stories, and then drop a 16-story building to the ground, we record approximately the same seismic signal as what was recorded on 9/11. Just pretend this rest doesn't exist. And for Tower 2, if you turn it into dust above the 20th story and just drop a 20-story building to the ground, you get the seismic signal that was recorded. And for Building 7, it's all but the bottom 2.5 stories. Where's the rest of the building? WTC2 just went away at the top, and then WTC1, and then you have these various quarry blasts all day. And then see down here at the bottom, that was an earthquake in the Fox Islands, which is up part of the Aleutian Islands. But look at the thing just before then. That was Building 7 going away. You can't even see it on the chart. It made a 0.6 equivalency on the Richter scale, which is like a jackhammer. And it was 6 times the mass of the Kingdom. No wave traveled through the earth. It was only surface waves. That doesn't happen in building demolitions. You always have an S wave and a P wave with building demolitions.
Yeah, that's a good point right there. So it's for those listening, this Daily Mail headline says Taylor Swift fans at Seattle concerts generated seismic activity equivalent to a 2.3 magnitude earthquake. So that's just, a crowd of people. So could you imagine 2 500,000 ton buildings supposedly collapsing and not registering on the Richter scale?
Yeah, it truly doesn't make any sense. Sorry, I'm a football fan. So there was also in Seattle, there was a football game where one of the players made such a tremendous play that the fans again registered on the Richter scale. So it's absurd that these buildings did not.
It's absolutely this scene here is so scary to look at, because
it's chilling.
Look, this is solid steel, and just watch what happens to how there it is.
Yep.
And you see the dust.
Yes. It like fades away.
This is so scary, you know. I mean, and it's life changing. You know, when you look at the technologies behind what these people have, it'll just free humanity. It's such an anti-human just ideology that these people have. It's bizarre.
I mean, that's the problem that we bump up against every time we podcast is it turns out, you know, the rich and elite, they have these powers and they refuse to share them.
Yeah. And you also shared this video, 3 issues most people have when faced with the truth regarding the events of 9/11. 1, problem-solving skills. 2, groupthink. And 3, they just can't handle the implications.
Totally.
And
Correct.
Yeah. And I mean, when problem-solving skills, I think a lot of people woke up from COVID. You know, I would say maybe 20% of the population used that problem-solving and then understood groupthink as well, because they saw the other side just acting crazy and believed everything they saw on television, everything they read in the news, and just obeyed. You know, so we understood what a groupthink was. I think, what was it that came out? Mass psychosis or mass hypnosis psychosis, or it was something like, So there's that, and then the implications. That's, I think, where even if you have problem solving skills, even if you understand the groupthink, but then you see this evidence, and then you say it only can be a directed energy weapon or something that dustified or dematerialized the buildings. That's where I would say a huge percent will be like, there's no way, right? This can't be real. And I don't know, Norman, do you think, I mean, usually when a weapon is used, like when we dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the whole world knew about it. Then nuclear energy was created, and you know, we just saw a progress happen within that. So, but when this happened, we never saw it used again. I mean, maybe it could have been, you know, many people say like Hawaii, the fires in Hawaii and all these other travesties that we have, or weather situations, but we haven't seen the technology used on 9/11 reused again. Doesn't mean that they won't, but it's just, I think it's very difficult for when something is used that hasn't been replicated or used again. So what do you think about that? And
these different directed energy weapons with Maui and Lahaina and California and all those things, that's more akin to a type of hot dew, because they've got similarities, but with 9/11 it was a cold event. So at least people who have woken up to Maui and California, because you could definitely see weird and wonderful stuff there. Dr. Wood has never really dabbed a toe in discussing that. She did do an interview in 2007 or 2017 with the California fires. Other people have come out and they've been able to point out that some sort of directed energy weapon was used, because you could see the weird burning of these posts next to the road with fences, where the nails, the wood would burn around the nail as if something was followed there. But again, with 9/11, it was something different. There was a interview with Donald Rumsfeld and Colonel Myers in 2003.
I remember that.
Where the interviewee or one of the journalists asked them whether or not they are willing to experiment on this stuff. And there's a documentary that came out and then in 2006 called Star Wars in Iraq. And they postulated and showed injuries to people that was akin to being hit by some sort of microwave weapon. And you also have the documentary investigative report, actually, that came out in 1992, covering the Panama invasion, of 1989, where they made claims of exotic weaponry being used there. And strangely enough, I was on the Van Clover podcast. The guys are out of Virginia, and that gentleman was actually stationed with his father as a kid. He lived in Panama, and he saw the destruction there and the weird stuff of localized destruction in certain areas where it'll be completely devastated, and on the side of it, it's completely fine. Oh, and this is wonderful. I must say, out of all the alternative media talking heads out there, and love him or hate him,
right. He's
Stu Peters, he's a very, very Stu Peters,
passionate.
Stu Peters. But at least he's the only honest guy who's been willing to look at this evidence. And even Ken O'Keefe actually personally approved a clip that I took out of their Occupied documentary, where I spliced in certain information and I sent it to him privately on a DM. And then I only started sharing it, and he told me he loves Dr. Judy Wood's work. I just wish they would talk more about this technology and what it means for us. And even Catherine Austin Fitz in her Breakaway Civilization Dumbs talk that she had with Tucker Carlson, alluded to this, the danger of weaponizing this breakthrough energy. And she mentioned that it was friends of hers that organized the Breakthrough Energy Conference. She was at the Breakthrough Energy Conference. And then Andrew Johnson, that you've got on the screen, spoke to her there. Dr. Wood presented there. And why didn't she just tell Tucker, hey, Tucker, it was weaponized and it was used on 9/11.
And and Tucker now has supposedly a documentary coming out, I think this week, or five part. Well, I mean, we'll see what he gets into, but I am not gonna.
And he's also going to be talking at this DC thing this week, and it's and this is where we've got to go into Professor David Ahu's 3 camps. Camp 1 is the government narrative believers. Camp 2 is the people who see something wrong with the official narrative, and Camp 2 is huge. There's a lot of truth seekers there that don't really do due diligence and research. And then you've got the bunch of agents, the COINTELPRO, and the disinformation and the muddlers of evidence. And then Camp 3 is very difficult to get to, because that's where you find the real truth by only doing your own diligent research. And that's where the algorithms suppress you, the evidence being presented gets ridiculed. You can relate this to the whole COVID on all the narratives over there. And that's it. Even this Ian Carroll guy, who's supposedly this new fucking whiz kid,
newbie,
who's the best flipping researcher or whatever, even he's got the bloody blind spot on that, man. I've gone into his comment sections. I've emailed Redacted. I've emailed Joe Rogan. I've emailed Tucker Carlson. I've written a bunch of articles with letters to Sean Ryan and Tucker Carlson and all of this kind of stuff. And it's frustrating that
I'm sure
so many people get caught up in this camp too, and they think that they've gotten some sort of talking head who is doing the work on their behalf. But fuck it, people, go do your own due diligence. Don't believe me. Go spend a couple of 1,000 hours and work through everything that I did, and you'll come to the same conclusion. But people aren't willing to do that because they just want this conspiracy-tainment aspect. I'll spend an hour here or a half an hour here, watch this video or whatever, and that's the depth of my truth seeking. And when you interact with people, they basically say, yes, everybody says, I want the truth, but what do they actually want? They're just looking for other people to support their narrative that they believe. And you can see that with people who bought into September Clues and In Plain Sight and all those documentaries that came out 18 years ago, and they haven't moved on since that. They haven't done any other further research into anything.
Yeah, Loose Change, Alex Jones. Yeah, I just
don't get me started on Alex Jones, please.
Yeah, and he's been really outed as the fraud. Yes, we all maybe started out with Alex, or just felt comfortable because he was such a loud voice, as a very charismatic person, and he had great documentaries in the beginning. But he's just a complete now fighting with them and covering up crimes, which is very sad. But he was probably always like that.
I won't fully discount Alex and all these talking heads or whatever, because they get to a point where 80% of the information they share is relevant, is new, and is good and everything. But the mind-bending, the most important 20% is not being discussed. And even though they know about it, and there's that one wonderful clip with Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, and Eddie Bravo in 2019, when Eddie Bravo brings up Dr. Judy Wood's work, and Alex Jones basically soils himself. Because Jesse Ventura took him on about the evidence Dr. Wood mentioned in 2012, and ever since then Alex Jones has been pushed by a bunch of people calling in and everything, and he just refuses to go there or platform her or anything like that. So the question I've got, Alex, is why are you so scared of a small little lady who wrote a book full of evidence?
Good point. Okay, let's listen to Andrew Johnson here on the Stu Peters Show.
Thermite reacting. Thermite is an incendiary. It's not even an explosive. He was claiming that this was the main destructive mechanism of the building.
Yeah, I've heard this thermite theory from this guy called Richard Gage.
Correct.
And the question that I have about that, and maybe we'll talk to him in the upcoming days. But thermite is a very bright, like it has this light that emanates.
That's right.
And it's blinding, a very small amount of it. Enough thermite to take down buildings of that size, 110-story structures like that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would look like a quarter of the sun was burning in New York City.
Go to the next slide, number 7, and you'll get a kind of feel for that. And this, again, you're exactly right, Stu, because this shows a still from on the right from a Brainiac video where they put thermite and it burns through a car engine. And I was shown this by Stephen E. Jones or images like this, not this exact image, but Stephen E. Jones, the physicist from Brigham Young, was using images like the one on the left there, claiming that this orange material was thermite. And then, as you say, that was later picked up by Richard Gage and the Architects and Engineers Group, starting from around about 2007. And I edited this video together in 2006 for Stephen E. Jones, where there were 2 individual clips. One still is from the top image. There's one still from one video, and I think the bottom image is one from the other on slide number 7 there. And that's how I got involved. And I didn't realize what I was doing. I thought Jones was an honest guy, and he put this thermite theory, and I thought he was a legitimate theory, but he used me to help him put out disinformation. And my name was mentioned by Dr. Judy Wood and Morgan Reynolds in one of their articles where they were addressing this thermite theory of Jones and pointing out such things as you just said about the brilliance of the reaction. And as you said, if you scaled that one on the right, it's like a little pot of material about 8 inches high, and you scale that up to 1,300 feet, and it's going to be, everyone's going to be blinded and burned and everything. So. And then if you go to the next slide, that says I was used to put out disinformation. And then number 9 is what actually happened. So the buildings turned to dust.
We have the videotapes. The firefighters reporting molten metal like a slurry or a steel mill or a volcano. Those are quotes. Giant pools.
What about the pictures of them dragging oxygen hoses all over the steaming supposed hot metal? If it were that hot, you wouldn't dare do that, would you?
Well, we do have the infrared photos of the molten metal.
Well, again, what melted the metal? Was it heat?
That's a very good question. It's also one of the first times I've heard Alex Jones speechless.
But if you go through the photographs of people taking the towers apart, doing the cleanup, I know Richard's got the big book. God, I can't remember his name. The big coffee table book with 1,000 pictures, 500 pictures. During the cleanup, nobody reported seeing melted steel in these core columns. So we don't know when and where they were actually destroyed. And, you know, just like we don't know where the flight data recorders went to that they were reported, you know, maybe some things disappeared. And if so, we'll never know where those steel pieces might have been and what could have brought the core down.
So are we saying, because there were reports as well that we had that we shipped all of the metal, the scrap metal, what was left overnight, or really quickly to China, right, to get destroyed. So is that
a cover story?
That's a cover story.
Complete cover story, because on September 12th, early in the morning, you had George Stephanopoulos, and I can't remember the TV anchor's name. They were talking about, the question is that everybody's been asking is, why is there so little rubble? That was early in the morning. And then that afternoon, Giuliani came out and said, we got a bunch of earth moving equipment in or whatever. And we've been trucking out like 50 trucks of stuff. And that's bull, because there are pictures of the people there whilst Building 7 is still standing, where you can see the stub of the North Tower. So there wasn't time to take anything away. So they had to bring in some sort of narrative of why there's so little rubble. And it was only on the September 12th that they were talking about this lack of rubble. And then Giuliani gave a reason, and then people just moved on with it. It's the same with the story of the fireman's boots melting. We've never seen any pictures of heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of the so-called melted boots. And if you do a little bit of research into fireman boots that they get issued with, they are able to withstand 650 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. Mm-hmm. And if you look on the rubble pile, just after the dust settled, you had thousands of people on there using their bare hands going through the rubble. Nobody reported burnt hands or anything like that. A lot of people were complaining about dust coming into their eyes and all of that kind of stuff. And even the cadaver dogs that were searching for survivors or the dead. So people just think about it. Go look at those pictures of the thousands of people all over the rubble pile, and there's no heat there. And there were water mains that burst, and there weren't any steam explosions and everything. I think either a couple of weeks afterwards or prior, I forget, there was a huge steam explosion where a guy was caught in a steam explosion, and that guy, I think, eventually died of burns. But you've got that satellite pictures where they were saying certain areas is a certain amount of degrees, but you've got pictures of people in that area wading through water, and they're not being boiled like cooked chicken, and there's again no steam explosions. It's infuriating how Gage and Fetzer clung to this ludicrous myth of intense heat that is easily debunkable.
Especially Fetzer. I mean, we'll watch the debate, but I mean, I never thought as him being someone who would do misinformation or propaganda like that. It seems like, because it's not like his life has been ruined, right? Because he doesn't just do 9/11, he did also Sandy Hook, and
a lot of
he's really-
JFK and all of that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
yes, because somebody's putting out a bunch of information or whatever doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to give you the full.
Mhm.
You shouldn't be naive to think that he'll cover something else up. And with the history, remember, he was the founder of Scholars. He actually did presentations on Dr. Wood's work. He actually mentioned in 2007, there's an interview that I can send you where he was being interviewed, and he said, no, but there must be some sort of male chauvinistic aspect to the guys not wanting to listen to Dr. Wood, because if you look at the cookie cutter of Building 6 and the strange anomalies with the other buildings, and we know that the government has been working on these weird directed energy weapons for all these years, and then all of a sudden, somewhere here, 2007, after she filed a court case and started talking about John Hutchinson, he actually threatened her because she wanted to put on her book evidence of free energy weaponry on the cover of her book.
So wait, Hutchison threatened her. He didn't want her.
No. Oh, James Fetcher. Threatened Dr. Wood.
Yeah,
and she was on a radio show when he phoned in without her knowing that he was going to come in, and he then just, with his normal way, he just attacked her big time, and then she basically told the host of the show that she hasn't spoken to him in over 3 years or whatever, and that he basically threatened her. And the way that he postulates his stuff is always, oh, but I was so nice to her, I always put her on my show, and then later on, all of a sudden, he jumps into this whole nuke aspect, and that's along with Gordon Duff from Veterans Today, and Gordon Duff from Veterans Today is on record with a taped phone call where he said, yes, Dr. Wood is right. She shouldn't be so defensive. Stephen E. Jones and Richard Gage might be working for the DIA or whatever. Fitz and Stephen E. Jones knows from the get-go that, you can play that. It's 2 minutes 40. It's
all right. Let's play it. So this is Gordon Duff, senior editor of Veterans Today.
So nanotechnology is a big deal. The issue with nanotechnology is are the processes. And the processes for nanotechnology that we have used, that were being used at Sandia Labs by Stephen Jones and others, are very rudimentary. The people I worked with and knew him for years, and he always knew nanothermite never existed.
Stephen Jones?
Yes.
Yeah. So these are all diversionary things. I mean, obviously.
He knew it never existed. The guys I worked with have known him for years. He was a respected physicist at Sandia Labs. He didn't work on the project, but it was not a big secret that it was an ISS project, and that nanothermite tests at Sandia had totally failed. And he knew this from day number one.
He did.
What does that tell you about him? And then, what would Judy Wood have to say about him?
Well, she would have a lot to say. I couldn't. I would let her speak for herself, of course, but she has.
So he worked at this United States Department of Energy, which people, in the UFO community say that all the UFO stuff, all the breakthrough energy stuff, is under the Department of Energy, being protected under the the Nuclear Secrecy Act, but there is an act that protects anything with radiation. Anything that gives off any radiation gets classified under this act in the Department of Energy. So Stephen Jones worked there, Los Alamos as well. So this guy is a military
and Los Alamos is where John Hutchinson was doing his replication of Nikola Tesla's work of jellifying, levitating, glowing of metals, and all of that kind of stuff.
Wow. I mean, there's another clip you have of Stephen Jones actually. Was this a presentation? What is this? It's about Stephen Jones, but I don't know if it's him or someone's talking about him.
No, it's about SIAC and ARA.
Oh, SAIC, that's
The-
right.
yeah. The military contractors who were tasked with security and cleanup since September 13.
Yeah.
It's a
So
good
what people don't understand is that our government doesn't do anything. Everything is contracted out to contractors. So when they say like NIST came out with a report, you have to know that these are contractors, private contractors from private corporations that benefit from war and the secrecy behind these technologies.
Yes,
So
and they were 2 of the 23 NIST subcontractors that were defendants in Dr. Judy Wood's whistleblower QTAM case of 2007.
man, she's amazing. She is something else. Hopefully, I mean, we're seeing that she is being redeemed. I don't know if she cares anymore, but you know, we are very happy
She
that
went through so much hell, man. And the thing is,
Yeah.
she had a assistant who was doing research with her. They did experiments, and they proved that aluminium glows orange in daylight to counter that whole aspect of that whatever was falling out the south tower, because nobody can really say what that was. Most of the people say that was lead and everything from Fuji Bank's UPS battery generated stuff that was actually melting. And strangely enough, or coincidentally, her assistant, a month after that, they published their paper refuting his molten metal claims. He got killed in a botched robbery in daylight. He got double tapped in the head by the supposed robbers. And then there was another gentleman who was I think in Virginia Tech, where she worked, that was also helping her. There was a mass shooting there, and he ended up dying as well. And then you had Eugene Malov, who was a physicist at MIT. He wrote the book Fire from Ice about cold fusion and the science fraud that MIT was doing, trying to change the data sets on cold fusion. He also, in his book, mentioned Stephen E. Jones 300 times, and he ended up getting beaten to death outside his house. So if he was still around and saw Stephen E. Jones pop up in the 9/11 truth sphere, he would have known that there's a rat.
Yeah, right. All right, so let's listen to this clip. I think this is from 9/11 Alchemy, right?
Yes.
Hired by the government to investigate September 11th, all specialized in directed energy weapons, psychological warfare, and advanced optical 3D illusion technology. Number 5. Even though the airplanes behaved impossibly and defied the current accepted laws of physics, nevertheless, the footage is real and authentic.
Those videos had not been tampered with. The videos were not fake, but something about the planes were fake, because the impact dynamics was completely nonsensical. It did not follow the laws of physics. The 2 videos which show very well the impact on the side of the tower, they are just ridiculous. They do not show something impacting on the side of a tower. They show an illusion. But I think it's an illusion which is happening in real time in front of your eyes.
But they captured some type of piece of technology on their videos that was, they captured technology. It wasn't a fake video. They didn't fake their videos.
The speed is the big giveaway to me. A 767 cannot travel anywhere near that fast at sea level. So we know it's not a 767 that's being used in this operation.
So what actually hit those buildings 20 years ago?
I'm convinced that covert technology was used in both the destruction of the towers and in what we were seeing with the alleged planes.
So were the planes a hologram?
I think it was some kind of image thing. And a lot of people have done, more research into that.
What was actually involved was some type of image projection technology. And I know that you've probably done more research in that area, because I know you've been talking to Mark.
I found companies that specialize in holograms or holography, all members of the Directed Energy Professional Society, alongside Booz Allen Hamilton, Lockheed, Boeing. What about, SAIC or ARA? Yeah. They all work on PSYOPs. They all work on psychological operations, directed energy, holograms, lasers, all things that you would see in a sci-fi film. It's actually being worked on, and these are the same people that investigated 9/11. They were paid, hired by NIST.
Yeah, well, just to mention, when you did the film, you covered a lot of the contractors who were involved in those type of technologies. You know, after the film, it was something that I got a bit more engrossed with. I wanted something tangible, how this is done. It's very secret, and you had people trying to debunk what was in the film, saying you can't project a hologram into thin air. That was one of my main missions, to just keep searching to try and prove this technology exists. So anyway, March this year, I actually came across a patent. I think it was published in 6th of February 2020, actually. I think it may have been applied for in 2018. That's around when your film...
Right.
Yeah. But the actual publishing of this document that I found was very, very... It ticked a lot of boxes for what we were talking about in the film. It is a system, a method for a laser-induced plasma infrared homing missile countermeasure. Essentially, what it is, it's a device that can be connected or attached to an aircraft. And if that aircraft is going to be seeked out by a missile, can project multiple aircrafts into space. And they are three-dimensional volumetric image of an object, which is like a ghost image. That's what they use in this document.
We had Grossman published an article that's on my website called UA-175 Ghost Gun.
Yes.
And he talks about a military black ops project using the term ghost. And so I think it's very interesting this patent you found uses the same term.
Yeah, that's the term they use, yeah.
Do you have the document there with you?
I do, yeah. This is what really struck me, because when you read the documents, some of the things they describe, it ticks every box of what we have spoken about for a long time. It is possible to generate a 2D or 3D volumetric image in space. It says in one potential embodiment, a laser system would be mounted on the back of an air vehicle such that the beam can be rastered using optics and mirrors to generate a large ghost image in space. This ghost image would appear to detract a homing missile away from a tangible air vehicle. In the second embodiment, there can be multiple laser systems mounted on the back of the air vehicle, with each laser system generating a ghost image such that there would appear to be multiple air vehicles. I have to say, Chris, this takes me back to Richard's very, very first radar analysis of Flight 175.
It became a project to compare all of those videos and ask the question, were they all showing a consistent plane path?
Sorry, second update, when he had the two tracks of two different flight paths.
I actually looked at two separate radar paths. One of them was from the military, known as the RADES system, which was positioned much further away than the domestic radar system. And I commented on the fact that there seemed to be a discrepancy. So the two radar paths were actually the same. They were going in the same direction, the same speed, but they were many, many meters apart, running in parallel.
They explained that away, that could have been to do with the riser calibrations and things different with the military and sort of civilian.
Apparently, if your radar equipment is a long distance away from the thing that you're observing, you get a fixed offset error. So this was just an error in the equipment. Once you take out that error, the two paths were the same.
But Richard originally thought that there was something traveling alongside projecting the plane.
All right. And I thought, well, was one of them being used to project an image that was producing the other one, perhaps? I wasn't sure.
Now, that to me becomes plausible again.
You're saying that this patent supports that first idea that one plane could be projecting stealth image, and as the document says that you just read, a three-dimensional volumetric object of a ghost aircraft.
Yes, which you know, depending on how we look at it, you did have that other aircraft that was traveling alongside. That's captured in a number of videos.
In one of those clips, the wing actually the wing disappears at some point, and that could be due to some sort of strobing effect.
When light doesn't do what you think it's supposed to do, you start wondering about what's happening with the optics.
Was it a projection? I don't go that far to say it was a holographic projection. I just say that what we were seeing was at least to some degree fake, and it was certainly not a standard 767 aircraft.
And you know as well as me.
And this, so basically they're saying it's, and because there's lots of people out there that say it's CGI, right? And they go through the videos and that it just goes through, or we see the nose coming out of the other side, or it doesn't go behind some objects, goes over some objects. But all the cameras everywhere caught this. I mean, if it is CGI, it means that they had to have gone through every single footage.
Yeah,
you know, live.
And the thing is, Mark Conlon on screen now, 9/11 Planes Research, has done a nose out study, and that has been debunked as being a dust explosion. Recently, Math Easy Solutions has done a frame by frame study also showing that when the plane or the image of a plane went into the building, that the nose out aspect of it, if the trajectory of the plane kept on going, that it's way too late. And strangely enough, Richard Gage actually used that against Jim Fetzer in their debate, because James Fetzer was pushing this nose out being a part of the projection or CGI or whatever. And again, you mentioned the wing that disappears behind the one building in Richard D. Hall's 3D animation. He debunks that because the building is in fact in front of the image of the plane. So that the whole CGI aspect of it is completely and utterly debunked completely. So even a remote control plane, all about the controllability and the banking that it did, even if Richard Gage wants to say it's a military plane or whatever, the physics of it just is impossible for any plane, unless it's a fighter jet or something like that,
right?
That could attain those speeds. Not something the size of a commercial plane or a military freight plane or anything like that, and not even a strengthened up plane. Nothing. And if you look at the impact dynamics at the end of it, nothing solid hit that building, because Newton's third law, if something solid hit that building, some of it would have fallen down to the ground. And there's nothing. You basically see the plane just disappearing into the building, and after it disappeared, that's when the explosion happens. And then people talk about, but there was a swaying of the building. The swaying only happened after the explosion happened. There was no swaying on the initial impact of it. So if you've got an explosion going off at the top of a 110-story building, obviously that will cause it to sway. So even those talking points are null and void.
That's a good point. And so, and people talk about the Israeli art students that were on that floor, placing explosives. But are we saying that it's not that, because
and they weren't even Israeli, they were Austrian. And the thing and also the name that they gave, gelatin. If you watch the full documentary, you will also find that gelatin is also a very conducive format for holography and holograms. So the gelatin aspect of that has been brought into play to push the bomb possible narrative, because those art students were only in the one building. They weren't in both. And even that little picture that you see with the E-team that is used, that was an artist rendering. That's not an actual real picture of what the guys bloody well did. And if the people wanted to make sure that people don't point a finger at Israel, why the hell would that article still be on the New York Times, and you can find it today still?
Yeah.
And people don't want to think that far, man. And there's an interview with one of those so-called art students that he had in, I think, 2016 somewhere, where he mentioned that they wanted to do this little balcony thing. So to keep other people knowing about it, they had this little row with these boxes, and they told the guys, no, but this is going to be our meditation area. And those boxes were given to them for free. And those boxes and those fuses aren't for explosives. It's for electrical fuses. So it's complete and utter bull. And that was that whole narrative was popularized by Rebecca Roth with her fictional books that she made. And she was outed by James Fetzer and friends in 2015 as a possible CIA spook, because on a Zoom call, they tracked back her IP address and a telephone number back to Langley, Virginia.
Oh my God. Okay, so wait. Okay,
and I've got an
Rebecca
article
Roth
on that.
Yes, and I found that out from you as well. This is just a week ago, a couple of weeks ago. Rebecca Roth, she's a retired flight attendant, correct? She came out, she did many interviews. I think she has books as well on this, and she says
fictional books.
Yeah, but when she came out, I didn't know they were all fiction, and she's just running some kind of op.
And it's not her real name either.
Of course not. Interesting. So, and then she says that that because of the calls that were made, that she said that it was Israelis that took over those planes, flew them to bases, different American bases, and basically murdered the passengers. And then that what we saw were probably remote controlled planes that went into the tower, and that's who Rebecca Roth is. Right. So now
just go read my article. She's completely and utterly debunked all her talking points, even when she was asked about Dr. Judy Wood and the possibility of radio control and all of that. She was actually platformed on Boston 9/11 the other day, and we gave her a little bit of flack there. The people from Boston 9/11 don't really like me. None of these poo bar 9/11 organizations really like me. And just read my article. It's not a real name. It's fictional books. It's been proven that there's no way that she could have been a flight stewardess because she was too young to be a flight stewardess in the years that she stated that she was.
And like you said, all you have to do is just look a little further. And we're all, including me, are a little guilty of that, where we hear some information that makes sense. We hear some credentials that give them some authority on a subject. And we're like, yes, there it is. But then, you say, just dig a little deeper, whoever it is that's coming out, and then you might find some weird connections. And she's got some CIA connections and Intel connections. She's not even using a real name, like you said.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And where's she been?
She disappeared after 2015. And for one other strange reason, all of a sudden, this Boston 9/11 platformed her the other day, and I saw somebody share a video about her, and there's a new YouTube channel that just popped up around about 2 months ago with like four interview videos of hers. So so people go to my Substack and just search Rebecca Roth, and you can read the whole shebangle where I just point out everything and who and what she is.
Your Substack is great, by the way. And so are we saying then, so it was like a Hollywood movie and a complete illusion, right? Which these people are great at, right? Have a lot of practice with, but we're saying 3D holographic, or what do you call it? Volumetric illusions.
3D volumetric projection technology that's got some sort of tangible aspect to it. It can create sound and all of that. The main thing is the best real world example of showing you the impossibility of a plane flying that low at that speed is the crash of flight 587 on November 12, 2001, 2 months and a day after the fact. Because what happened to AA 587, it took off behind an Air Asia flight. The guy ended up in turbulence of the plane in front of him, and he overcorrected on the rudders, ended up shearing off the tail wing, and then you lose all control. The plane basically started falling out of the sky. The safe recommended speed under 10,000 feet is a maximum of 240 knots. So as soon as that plane exceeded its safe speed, the engines tore off, actually hit the ground before the plane did.
Wow. And are we also saying that this DW or whatever they used created then that Wile E. Coyote image hole in the tower?
Yes.
Wow.
There's also a clip that I often use out of 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality, where Chris Hampton and I think it was Conspiracy Cuba or whatever, that where many like 10 or 15 years ago already explained how the airplane shape holes were created. There's actually three installments of the 9/11 Alchemy series. It's 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality, 9/11 Alchemy Free Energy and Free Thinking. And then if you want to go into the esoteric and the numerology of 9/11, then you watch 9/11
That is
Alchemy,
scary.
A Big Idea.
Big idea.
And Gordon or William Ramsey, who interviewed me a short while ago, he wrote a great book going through the numerology of 9/11. So if you
the numerology
I
is insane.
call those three your crash course into 9/11.
Okay, we'll put those in the show notes. So I think this is a good clip. It also talks about, it shows that there's a seismic reading for one of the holes.
Yeah, the fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field.
Yes. So and this talks about the hurricane as well, I think.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
The hell was that?
But that definitely looks like an explosion, right? Like, unless there's something there on that floor that caught fire, because it looks like something's on fire. When that flight hit, supposedly.
There was a spike in the Earth's magnetic field for every event on 9/11.
The first one is WTC-1 getting an airplane-shaped hole.
It seems this would include the Pentagon event and Shanksville.
Let's look at the Earth's magnetic field, just out of curiosity. Well, first we look at all of the weather. Now, as that high pressure system moved eastward, the pressure increased. As Hurricane Aaron moved towards New York City, the pressure began to decrease. So that shows pretty much when they were fighting each other, right at 10 a.m. on 9/11. The Earth's magnetic field was pretty consistent until the North Tower got its hole. 20 minutes before the North Tower got its hole. And then the South Tower got its hole and the two towers went away. And all afternoon, remember when Building 7 had all the lather coming out of it? And then Building 7 went poof and things were almost back to normal.
Huh.
This was not there was a solar storm that hit the Earth the following day, not this day. So this was just something weird. We're going to look at this in a little bit more detail. These were all recorded in Alaska, 5 different stations. Here's a closer view. You can see that all the values start going down here. and they start going up again right after the tower gets its hole. Interesting coincidence. And the south tower gets its hole, they go horizontally. I kind of joke, but I'm serious when I say this, that there's the 9/11 Commission report, Lamont Doherty seismographic station, and the NIST report. They all give a slightly different time for when the North Tower got its hole. I can tell you which one's right based on this. I mean, that falls, of the 3 times, the magnetometer data implies that it's somewhere in between 2 of them, not outside of that group of 3.
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. When you think of these, the power of these technologies from 24 years ago. I mean, who's going to stop these people, right? I mean, the masses, if they understand their power, but who's going to? I gave up on everyone waking up, right? It's just do you. But I don't know if people are ever going to wake up to something this horrific.
It's so massive.
Yeah, it is. There was also the was it 1,400 vehicles? Yeah, here it is. That got toast. I mean, what's this, right? I mean, obviously something. These were not even close to the World Trade Center,
But
right?
before
I guess
you play it, the car started spontaneously combusting whilst the 2 towers were still standing. And you can actually work your way through the firefighter testimonies. Math Easy Solutions has actually collated everything into a searchable 7,000-page PDF. And what Richard Gage loves doing is he likes cherry picking information out of there with people talking about the sounds of explosions, but not everything that goes boom is a bomb. And there's also testimonies that indicate the use of directed energy weapons, and a lot of them were redacted. There's actually one, I forget the lady's name, but she mentioned that she was running down the street and a vehicle exploded next to her, but she didn't feel a heat blast. I've also shared another testimony of an EMT that was helping the firefighters and everything, and then they saw the vehicles and stuff just blowing up, and they were taking pictures because on their rigs that they had disposable cameras. Now remember, this is 2001, people. No cell phone cameras, no digital cameras, no nothing. You've got the camera that you've got to take pictures of, and then you've got to go take it to a store so that they can go develop your pictures for you.
Right.
And when these EMTs all arrived home later on that evening, they got phone calls from their superiors stating, "Hello, we want your cameras." So yeah,
of course. Oh, when I went to Iraq as a contractor in 2004, when we landed in Baghdad airport, and I remember this. Okay, driving on the airport road, going to wherever they were taking us inside Baghdad. The entire perimeter of the airport, all of the trees were laid where it looked like a bomb went off, right? But it didn't look like it, only because all the trees were down from an epicenter. And I remember seeing the U.S. military with their small caterpillars cleaning it up while we were driving in. And when we had to leave every 3 weeks because of insurance. And when we left, I remember it was all cleaned up. I took a mental note. Oh, and the security guys, the Iraqi security guys, told us that there was a war in the Baghdad airport and some kind of nuclear weapon, they said, was used. So maybe we use something similar, because apparently they were losing. That's what they were saying.
Because
these guys.
Look, a nuclear event did take place on 9/11, but Dr. Wood calls it magnetic electrogravitic nuclear process, like low energy nuclear reactions without ionizing radiation, like LENR, in line with cold fusion. So whenever people want to go on about the tritium, the barium, the strontium, and all of that Fetzer loves to say that Dr. Wood doesn't cover, she covers that in detail in her book.
Yeah.
And he lies about that.
That's too bad. Yeah. So and many people don't know about this. And Topher, you get a kick out of this, of all these vehicles that were toasted that day, even though with no explosions.
Toasted cars. We got to get to the toasted cars. I say they're toast. They're history. I can't say they're burnt because I don't know that. But they're toast. I just decided to use that word to say something happened, messed them up. You can't fix it. You got to get a new one.
Wow.
But this one is quite interesting in that it has an abrupt, toasted, not toasted. Like it's like it's on the showroom floor. It just had a new wax job back there. What abruptly stops a real fire, a regular fire, doesn't do that. It would be lapping around the corner. Also, why aren't the lights melted?
I didn't hear of any fireballs rolling down the streets, and cars were going into spontaneous combustion. There was no fireball that hit them. They just simply burst into flames for one reason or another. There was even a car park blocks away that the cars started smoking and catching fire, and no one questioned that.
Various detractors like to say that the cars got towed. I don't know about how some of them were, but I know these were not towed. You can see them before and after. And you can see cars adjacent to each other. One might be okay, and the other one isn't.
One's fine.
There are witness accounts of what happened to some of these cars too. For example, Patricia Ondrovich, who was a first responder, she, I think, came out of World Trade Center 7, and the cars were exploding right next to her.
The FDNY vehicles were remarkable. There were enormous ladder trucks.
What?
Pumpers that looked like they were thrown around the fields like toys, and they reeked of unimaginable loss.
Wow. I mean, look at the damage. Look at how it's bent like that.
It's it seems like it was put in a furnace and it like just wilted away.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those vehicles' engines were just missing. You can see those in that bottom fire truck with those strange holes in it. Now, so the guys who proposed it was thermite, and there was these molten iron spheres in the dust that came over lower Manhattan is what caused this damage to these vehicles. But you had trees that weren't singed, you had all that paper everywhere, you had people in the dust cloud that wasn't burnt, and strangely enough, there's actually video where a guy is panning over all this destruction of the vehicles and they're like still fuming away, and then you've got a flagpole, 5 flagpoles with flags still waving in the wind. And okay, so why didn't anything happen to those flags?
Yeah, it reminds me of Paradise, California, right? Where that fire that happened, and where you just it just localized to the houses, the cars. It never spread to any of the trees or any of the shrubs, and like I think you mentioned before, where just the nails in the fences were kind of melted or disconfigured, but that's it. So they are still using these technologies.
There's various incantations of it, definitely, yes.
So I guess this. Oh wait, before we get into the blue beam and how, I mean, this is a military ad or for the Marines.
Yeah, but I've got to give you some feedback on this. This is a channel on YouTube from a gentleman, a Reality Access, and he actually was a video editor for Richard Gage and A&E for many years until he woke up to the nefarious aspects of information that's being held back, and he made a bunch of these very, very interesting videos. It's a bit difficult to follow because you've got to read on the left-hand side of the picture at the bottom and the top. You basically got to like rewatch a 20-minute video like 3 times to catch all the information that he puts in there. But it's definitely worth your while to go look up his YouTube channel, because he's done excellent work in building on some of the information of Dr. Wood as well.
Nice. So he woke up to it. That's good to see. So he's saying here the concept of instantaneous molecular dissociation was indicated in this U.S. Marine commercial that was televised in the year 2016. And we can see just military vehicles being justified.
Yeah.
So are they saying they can use this against enemies, basically?
Well, that's the feeling I get out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if you think back to the reports that came out of Panama in 1989, when they were testing these exotic weaponry, because that was the first time that they used the stealth fighter, stealth bomber plane, and then you had these reports of cars being cut in two by some sort of laser, and basically combatants of Panama, where they actually show pictures of just this blob of meat, tangled bones and skulls of a person, and that's in 1989.
Wow, man.
Wow.
Look at this. This is all that's left. We don't
just
see.
Pause there. Just go back a bit. Go back a bit. Still, okay, forward, and pause. So what you see to the left of that picture is building 6. That's 8 stories. Then in the center of the picture, that is stairwell B, where the 16 people survived.
No way.
Go up a little bit more. That is what was left of the building. And you see to the right, that's an ambulance that's parked in front. That ambulance
this one
was parked in front in the street, and nothing's happened to it. So all you see over here is some of the remnants of the aluminium cladding, a hell of a lot of dust. And in the background, you can still see Building 7 standing. So they did not ship all that stuff off to China, my friends.
Yep. Right.
Oh.
No, they did not.
That building disappeared.
That is just insane. And Giuliani obviously knew,
Well,
it's
somebody
weird.
phoned him and said, "Hey, man, you got to get out of there because the Twin Towers are going to collapse." Because he was supposed to go to his bunker in Building 7, but he decided to go to where, strangely enough, FEMA rocked up on Monday evening for a so-called drill, whilst all the military drills were going on. So isn't it just a nice coincidence that they were going to have a drill in New York City with all the FEMA guys from all over
a lot of
America
people
coming in?
A lot of people got really lucky on September 11th.
Yes, never mind the insider trading
right.
with guys making a hell of a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
And let's not mention Larry Silverstein that had what, 115 million investment, and he cashed out $4.5 billion, and even after that he even sued the bloody airlines for more money.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, man. Yeah, there's some funny videos out there. I mean, so, what's their next one? Yeah, COVID was the one that came after this, right? They had complete control of the media, and they even did
worldwide.
back then. Yeah, worldwide. They shut down entire economies. I had a friend in India who was working there. And I remember I got on a phone call with him, and he showed me the streets. Quiet. Nothing in India. And they were able to do that to the entire world. So
here in
just
South
imagine
Africa,
the power.
We weren't allowed to buy cigarettes. We weren't allowed to buy liquor.
What?
You weren't allowed to buy sandals, certain clothing. So the stuff that they told us we weren't allowed to do was absolutely ridiculous.
It was. COVID was so bad. It was so dark, and it was just getting worse. If it wasn't for the Ukraine war, they would have kept on going. I mean, we were trying to fight here. I mean, I was going to rallies, and we were trying to fight, but they didn't care. They were going
to rallies as well, man. I was going to rallies as well.
Yeah.
I had so much fun. I was bursting into grocery stores without a mask on. I was going to restaurants. I didn't put a mask on, and no, but honestly, it was just ridiculous.
Hey man, the restaurant aspect was the best because you've got to walk in with your mask on your face. They said, but when you sit down, it's like the virus is just going to fly over.
It's
I
gone.
Come on!
I think that woke so many people up where it's like, okay, so I can walk in your front doors with a mask on, and then the second I sit down, the virus goes away. Like, I think that really did wake a lot of people up.
Yeah, they overplayed their hand. They weaponized empathy, and it's really destroyed our trust in institutions.
Yeah.
And people are waking up and asking questions. Even people like Tucker. Well, he still might be controlled opposition, but I'm glad that he's talking about things. So now, when it comes to UFOs, and this whole thing, and this whole thing, and it's the same people who have hid this secret, who have reverse engineered, or maybe not, or just went into in secrecy and developed these technologies in secrecy. Something else is in play here, right? There is a psyop that's happening with these quote unquote whistleblowers. Now with Avi Loeb, who was part of Star Wars, by the way. He came here in the 80s and worked on SDI, and he's pushing 3I Atlas. Even though we know it's a comet, he came up with another thing. He's like, oh, there could still be a probe behind it, and he's talking about the Messiah and all that. And now Israel is having this Greater Israel project, and I feel like it's all coming together, and you do talk about Blue Beam, and if we're talking about these 3D images that they can just put into the sky with sound as well, something on a global scale could happen. It's going to have to be something that big for people to believe it.
Yeah, but it's actually a program that they brought in 1994, because the whole idea is, if we go into the Middle East or whatever, wouldn't it be nice if we can project a image of Allah and then have our adversaries just run away? That was in 1994.
That's
and they've
right.
been working on this stuff. If you watch 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality, there are patents going back to the early 70s on projection technologies and all of that kind of stuff. And in 2008, you had during the Obama election cycle for president, there was a in the CNN newsroom, they beamed a lady into the studio, and they actually dumbed down the quality of her 3D projection. Otherwise, people would have just freaked the hell out. And even in 1990, was it 1992 or 20? No, it was in 2012. John Lear was talking about technology that he found from his friends. And remember, he was ex-CIA, special forces, all that kind of stuff. And he mentioned how one of his friends told him about a presentation that was given by a bunch of TV executives, where a gentleman came in, gave a presentation. He walked up and down the aisles and everything, took off his glasses, cleaned his glasses and everything, talking about the history of television, and got back onto the stage. And he said, well, thank you for listening. And then they just switched him off and he disappeared.
That is just...
boy.
And, the more people get impoverished and get confused and this chaos, they're going to believe. They're not going to look deep or look beyond these events that are probably about to happen. You have a video on your Rumble about 3D volumetric projection technology from the 60s. I hope an ad's not going to play. Oh, good.
Kamasuri Yakuyama, something or other, his name. Yeah, we was talking about Dulce and everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Alien Scientist is in here. Why isn't this playing?
Oh, Alien Scientist and I really like each other. That guy's a real asshole.
He is. He got kicked off of Twitter the other day.
I got into one of his presentation once, and he was going on about his experiments and thermite and sulfidation and everything, and then I just reminded him about his coverage of the Hutchinson effect, which he removed off his various platforms. And when he asked me about the sulfidation of the steel, I told him, "But hello, dude, that's part of the molecular dissociation there that you know about Hutchinson." And as soon as he saw that I'm busy demolishing him, he just muted my mic, and I couldn't talk, and he just went on this bloody rant. So it's very strange for me to see how the UFO guys are now pivoting, talking about holographic technology or 3D volumetrics. So yeah, you can play this because it's again repivoting of people in real time as this just becomes more known.
Right.
Because it's my opinion that the military laboratories, just like Sandia Laboratories, had been working on holographic devices attached to aerial platforms that could be controlled. As far as holograms are concerned, it's been developing at a...
Sorry, what?
Did you see gelatin in that section again? For your Israeli art students and gelatin?
Yeah, right, exactly. So, and the gelatin interacts, right?
Yeah, that's part of the projection technology that you need.
And before, there used to be that you have to have some kind of a cloudy area or cloudy background to project this device, because you need a screen to project a holographic, three-dimensional holographic image. But these days you don't need a screen, because by three-dimensional new technology, you don't even have to have a screen to project an image of a flying saucer or anything. I mentioned many years ago that CNN did a report in 1990 that alluded to the use of some kind of a holographic imagery over Iraq during the Iraq conflict of 1990, producing an image of Islamic god of Imam, or the teacher, in the sky. So things like this is really not science fiction. And my greatest influence was definitely a person that I communicated with in 1993 and 1994. Namely, I got in touch with a Canadian journalist by the name of Serge Monast, who first indicated in 1993 that there was this plan by NASA that was planning in the far future to project images in the sky globally to create some kind of a panic situation around the world, to create a threat, global threat.
1. The towers turn to dust.
So, I mean, that's what's probably coming up next. I mean, if they need something, to give another excuse for war in the Middle East and taking over those lands, then, they're going to have to do something like that. And people be duped, unfortunately.
But Serge Monast was talking about this, but what was 9/11? 9/11 was exactly that.
Yeah.
We had a catalyzing event with things that were in the air that caused damage that the whole world saw. And there you have it. That was your Project Bluebeam, the UFO guys are waiting for, already happened. And the guys haven't woken up to it yet.
And I remember when I was looking into it, I was like, why did it happen right after the Disclosure Project? With Greer and the press conference that he had in 2001. I think it was just months before, or a month, maybe a month only before 9/11. And I always thought, well, it's because they want to keep this secret and put in more secrecy into, which is what happened with the Patriot Act, right? Everything went more secret instead of things coming out. And where is the clip you have of Greer? He completely dodged the question. Was it? I think
it's. I think higher up in.
Oh, here it is.
There he is with a green shirt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, so I can't hear the question here, but he's asked about the DW, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
There's compelling evidence that not just the towers, but the entire World Trade Center complex was destroyed by perhaps a directed energy type of something that was operator technology with molecular dissociation. That seems to be very much related to what we're talking about.
I have looked at it. I have bigger fish to fry. 9/11 was terrible. We lost 3,000 people. It led to 2 huge wars and trillions of dollars. I will tell you this. I'm not going to get into specifics. I mentioned a gentleman named Richard Foch, third highest guy, Richard Foch at the Naval Research Labs. He was in meetings with the then Vice President of the United States, Cheney. And he said, absolutely, it was known about in advance, and there was involvement at that level. And he told me, and I have witnesses, multiple witnesses to this, that if he were to speak of this, now he's passed away, that he, his wife, his children, and his grandchildren would all be killed. That's all I'm going to say on the 9/11 issue. But there is a lot to that story. I've never shared publicly what I just said, but the man has passed away. So it's not hard to, and I think most people get into these grand conspiracy theories. Basically, all you have to do is stand down. There's constant threat. There is terrorism out there. And you don't even have to hoax an event in that case. You just have to stand down the systems that would have intercepted it. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like when you're doing a code blue, boom, clear. You say clear before you do the electric shock. So you just clear the system, let it come in and hit. Now, what I think happened on 9/11 is more like what I just described. And I have very good reason to believe that, because someone of that integrity and rank had a front row seat and knew about it. And I've never spoken of this before right now, but I think that it's disturbing. It's enraging, but it's a minor rounding error compared to what's coming if we don't end this cartel's hegemony on the secrecy related to UFOs, ETs, what have you. 9/11 is going to be a very minor blip on the screen. So that's my warning to people. You can take it or not. But I've known what you just asked about since it happened. My whole security team lit up like you wouldn't believe when that happened.
I mean, yes, he's kind of right. I mean, yes, there was. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like October 7th too, right? Because even Netanyahu says that this is our 9/11, right? And they obviously stood down. But to me, this looks like and let it happen. Yeah. But 9/11 wasn't just letting it happen. Someone was actively. It was an operation that someone was actively carrying out. So, but him just dismissing it like that, it's crazy, because if the technology is real and we can see the evidence of it, then there is, because he always talks about free energy, and you mentioned that in this article, he always talks about free energy and that it needs to come out and free humanity, and he's just dismissing it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and he also talks about the same technologies that Dr. Wood talks about that's relevant to 9/11 in all those various clips, and especially if you go down to where Dr. Wood speaking to Theo Chalmers in 2012, she mentions all the narratives that the people have, and again, that's Dean Warwick with his information, with the interview that he did over the radio, what's his face, David Icke stuff, and if you scroll down, I had a to and fro with Ashton Forbes, and we all know that those videos are complete and utter shams. Enough people have debunked him, but I've got some sort of feeling that he's out there to talk about all these technologies, to have these videos of his debunked and to make him then irrelevant. And I interacted with him for over 6 months, sharing a bunch of information on Tom Bearden and all of that. And then later on, when I started pushing him the whole time with
Yeah.
why aren't you linking this and mentioning this in the same sentence with 9/11, he then blocked me. And I've got all the screenshots of everything that I shared with him.
That is too bad and weird, because it's not like you. I mean, usually if you attack the videos, he'll block you. But if you were giving him information about Bearden and the technology behind it, and it's weird he would block you for that.
Yeah,
That's
but
very
I pushed him and told him, "You're talking about all this technology and everything, and you want to superimpose this onto the flight MH370 that disappeared, but you're not talking about 9/11. Like, what the hell, man? Because 9/11 is a little bit more important to you being an American,
right,
than worrying about a fucking Malaysian Airlines flight that disappeared." And then gone.
Yeah. Too bad. I mean, yes, he's doing good for, he's been great for bringing 0 point energy and, all the science out there. We got to give him that. And he has a big platform, but that's unfortunately why he won't look at 9/11 and what happened that day.
Yeah, but it's exactly the same that you can say with Richard Gage and his work over the years to get the normies to wake up to it not being the main narrative. But Richard Gage is keeping you away from the evidence and the importance of what Dr. Wood has brought to the table. So why is she on a block list on Wikipedia since 2010? And when you actually ask Richard Gage, Ted Walters from the International Center for 9/11 Justice, or any of their talking heads about the court case of Morgan Reynolds and Dr. Wood, they act as if they don't know about it.
Unbelievable. And they have no shame. I mean, the internet knows these things. It doesn't go away. They just don't care, I guess. Mike Barra, when you first, I don't recognize the name, but then when I see his face, I do recognize him.
Oh dear. This guy actually said no, but go watch more TV. Like, come on, dude. This guy is a complete and utter freak show, and you've got to actually see his comments in this article where he actually even made more of a tit out of himself.
Yeah, was it this one? So this is the guy right here. Topher, do you recognize him? This Mike Barra guy? I think he's been on TV.
He's been on Ancient Aliens.
Okay, yeah.
I don't recognize him, but
and he pushes the government narrative.
Of course he does.
Yeah, of
so
course.
He's a government operative then.
With that facial hair, it's hard to.
And he's got an Illuminati tattoo on his shoulder, and his handle on Twitter and on his Telegram and his email has got a 33 in it.
Yeah, of course. Look at that. Yeah, 333.
Richard Gage's email is richardgage33@gmail.com as well.
Really? So Masons. I mean, and we know the numerology into 9/11 is insane. It really is. Everything ties. The date, the times, the floor that was hit. I mean, it's just one by one. There's like such a huge list of what happened that day that it was like an occult. What do you call it? Sacrifice almost. And we sacrificed the nation for it.
Because even in that X space, because we had the X space, and then I created the video of the X space where I just added in pictures to corroborate what I was talking about, and he doesn't even know about Rodriguez, the janitor dude who had the key for it. It's a really interesting conversation that we had in that X space, and when he basically saw that he's being schooled, he basically just abruptly ended the X space. And I had the same interaction with Captain Dan Hanley, who
what do you think about him?
Yeah, look, his intentions are good. Mm-hmm. He wants to get the Muslims to move away from the guilt that's been pushed on them, because it wasn't them. It was obviously the US MIC with some rogue elements from various countries that did 9/11. but he pushes the remote control planes. And in an X space, I actually confronted him and told him about Morgan Reynolds' court case, talked about John Lear, talk about the calls to Boeing where they said that the flight speeds and all of that is impossible. He even acknowledged that I know more about flight dynamics and everything than him. And then when I reiterated that people need to look at Dr. Wood's work and Morgan Reynolds' court cases, then he just abruptly ended the X space.
What? Man, it's so weird. It really is weird. So do we know are there any prominent figures? And hopefully you're getting out there more and more, and this information is getting out there more and more. You have it organized all on your Substack and your Rumble. But currently, are there any prominent figures pushing or talking about Dr. Judy Woods and her evidence?
No.
See, there's something wrong there. There's something very wrong
And
there.
And the thing is, they all talk about unity, and this year we've got everybody coming together in the 9/11 truth movement to bring this to Washington, D.C. or whatever. And I promise you, if you go to Washington, D.C., you get up and you ask Richard Gage about these two court cases of Dr. Morgan Reynolds and Judy Wood, he would most probably deny knowing about them. And he actually mentioned in in an interview once when somebody confronted him about them, but if Judy Wood is ignoring all this evidence of thermite and high heat or whatever, she isn't practicing science, she's practicing witchcraft.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, he did. He called her like a witch.
Yeah.
Witches, come on, man. You don't be calling people witches.
No, that's just scroll up to the top video, even more where Gage is standing. Yeah, that one. That's in preparation for the debate with Fetzer, and what he stated here on the 24th of August is absolutely hilarious.
Oh yeah, wait, let's listen to this.
Anybody's got any valuable info, proving that planes hit the towers, that could be helpful. I haven't had enough time to really prepare this well, so I could use some help. Thanks so much.
You're kidding me.
Thank you, Richard.
Anybody's got any?
Yeah. So the self-proclaimed specialist of 9/11 or whatever is asking for help to prove that planes hit the towers. Come on, man.
So he does know, and he's covering. I mean, it's so unfortunate, and he's the one who's out there the most. And he was on Redacted, but I heard someone else talk about him too, that they were watching his presentations, and I forget now who it was, but that's crazy. So I guess, and here's his. We're not going to go through this now. We're already at 2 hours and 40 minutes, guys. But I definitely want to watch this. I'm probably going to watch it after the show.
I can tell you now.
What
Thank
happened?
you, Richard Gage, and thank you, Fetzer. If you go to the 1 hour 10 minute mark,
nice. Okay.
They actually use 1 hour 10 minutes. They actually use one of my articles to push the plane narrative. And then I can show and prove to you that he used Math Easy Solutions one video as well to counter because Fetzer in our email challenge was talking about this whole nose out aspect. So this has been a coordinated clown show debate between two limited hangouts.
Yeah,
more focused on trying to indirectly discredit directed energy weapons. And the best thing is they had nobody there to defend directed energy weapons. And the guy who was hosting this, I emailed him after Gage's initial presentation, and I emailed him the article that I wrote of debunking Richard Gage's presentation, and then I wrote the article debunking Fetzer's presentation, and then I emailed him today after I watched this debate story, telling him, if you've got intellectual humility, you will have me on so that I can give you the debunk of both these limited hangouts, because they built their whole aspect of debunking each other. That's wonderful, but they both still stuck to this bullshit narrative of high heat, which is easily debunkable.
Right. I love the jet fuel. And so who's this researcher? I mean, who's this podcast? We should definitely write to him. Real Deal Media. So we'll try to get you on his show, and hopefully our listeners and anyone watching would also reach out to Real Deal Media and tell them that we'd like Norman to get on the show and present this case of directed energy weapons, especially if they're open to debate and want to cover all of the evidence. Correct. So here it is. They're talking about it.
Yeah, and this article, Fetzer read through about a third of the article. The article actually ends up also covering the Shanksville hoax and the Pentagon. And then when it comes to the Pentagon, there's a gentleman with the name of Adam Eisenberg, and he's going to be one of the guys who will be on our symposium that we are hosting on September 11th, along with Dr. Morgan Reynolds, who was the original no-planer, and Matthew Naus is a guy who actually organized some of Richard Gage's seminars and tours in the early 2000s, and who sold a copy of Dr. Judy Wood's book to Richard Gage. And we will have 9/11 planes research on there as well. And also another gentleman named Keith, NP, No Planes, No Kidding. And he's actually written Senator Johnson, Tulsi Gabbard, a whole bunch of senators and stuff, where he sent them bundles of Dr. Wood's work, which he's got the receipts of that they received it because it was registered post up to 4 years ago, and not once but 3 or 4 times. So this information sits with the senators and everything that are all part and parcel of this do that you've got at the DC, where you can get a nice VIP ticket for $911.
Of course, it's that number. Of course. Yeah. All right, so let's listen to Fitzer here. This is from the. Where's the symposium going to be that you guys are doing? Is that on your channel?
It's going to be on YouTube, and then closer to the day, we will also be streaming it on X, Rumble, and Odyssey, some various platforms. But the main focus is on YouTube for now. That's the only link that I've got, and I've been promoting that on my X every second or so day. So you'll be able to find it on my timeline.
All right, really looking forward to that. All right, see your Fetzer here.
Viewing here. 210-story steel core towers and 5 more buildings had strange anomalies. They were extremely robust in their destruction. Look at the external steel support columns we find here and there. There's a nice illustration of the solidity of the buildings. It would have been impossible for any real plane to have entered either of these buildings. It appears too many people are forgetting. They're forgetting how massive a 110-story building with a steel core and outer steel beam shell covered with aluminum cladding really is. We apparently had 2 plane hits, 2 separate towers. The alleged first plane was only captured by 1 video, but the second was captured by a bunch, as many as 52. And I've reviewed what we've discovered. The footage you see is real, but it defies the laws of physics, really. It does break the laws of physics, aerodynamics. And that's why no one in the 9/11 truther movement or the truther talking heads really want to talk about the alleged planes. Let me add, as a personal aside, it took Morgan Reynolds and Judy Wood, members of Scholars, a year and a half to convince me I had to look at the airplane footage. And when I did, I was astonished, because you not only had the impossible speed, you had the impossible entry, you had the impossible traversing, you had the nose out phenomenon. This was clearly fabricated. there would have been a real plane, would have crumpled external to the building, body, seats, luggage, wings, tail would have fallen to the ground. But we know there are beneath the facades no bodies, no luggage, no wings, no tails, no passengers. The effect, had it been real, was absent, which means it didn't happen. Here's a video that helped you get up to speed. Well, here's John Lear, our nation's most distinguished pilot. When I founded Scholars, I also established a Scholars Forum at 911scholars.ning, ning.com. It's there today. You can go to the 9/11 Scholars Forum and you can read John Lear's affidavit on the non-occurrence of tower hits on 9/11. It was not possible. You can also read an interview with John Lear with me on The Real Deal, The Envelopes and Airspeed by John Lear. John Lear, Michael Morrissey, Rob Massamo, the head of pilots for 9/11, exchanged on planes, no planes on 9/11. What I'm telling you is there's a bonanza of evidence here that the 9/11 movement can take advantage of. You got Ed Ward, a whistleblower who passed away. We have a university study finding fire did not bring down World Trade Center Building 7 on 9/11. We have newly released FBI docs that shed light on apparent Mossad foreknowledge of the 9/11 attacks. But where are the hundreds of people who went missing from the 4 planes on September 11? Could all the recordings shared by the government be part of a perception management psyop? Part of a trauma-based mind control operation? No, you must be a tinfoil hat freak to think that. How dare you? Well, strange fact. At the airports where the people were expected to arrive that day, while the live feeds were happening at the various incidents, you had TV crews at the airports, but no family members turned up to be interviewed looking for their family members. But you did have people on TV was giving interviews on September 12th. And what do you think about this interview? If you call your mother, would you introduce yourself? Hi, Mom, it's Mark Bingham. You know, I'm your son. But there was a movie made about the brave people on Flight 93, which actually was in the air but did not crash in Shanksville and was not even taken out of service until 28 September 2005. How dare you?
So amazing. So he's reading your article on this. All right. So the Real Deal better have you on. I mean, if they're willing to read the article on this, but yeah. So you say he stops short here, where it just he won't continue further.
Yeah, and then because he's pushing the nose out, irrelevant talking point. Then Richard Gage was able to use what Math Easy Solutions did to debunk Fetzer in the email chain that we've had for the last week and a half. So it's a coordinated debunking of each other, but at the same time attacking Dr. Wood's work. And that is very, very sneaky. And that's the way that the 9/11 Truth Movement has been operating ever since the two of them went to court.
Yeah. So
and that's for the last 20 years.
And Fetzer is a thermite guy, right?
No, Fetzer is a mini nuke guy.
Oh yeah, mini nuke guy. That's right. Which is in line with Duff and veterans today. I mean, they have the nuke thing everywhere there. And the Russian guy who came up with it, I forget his name. Is he
Kazlikov or something like that?
Yeah. Is he an American or is he a deflector from Russia?
He's a Russian or whatever that only came out at that stage or whatever, made a bunch of noise, never to be heard from again. And then you had another gentleman called Heinz Pommer. But again, he doesn't address most of the evidence that Dr. Wood brings. They don't discuss buildings 3, 4, 5, 6 and the Bankers Trust, or the Greek Orthodox Church that also dissolved. Because as soon as you look at the 9/11 orphans, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the Bankers Trust, it completely breaks the narrative of jet fuel bombs, thermite nukes, or anything like that. So Fetzer and Gage are well-skilled neurolinguistic salesmen. Of steering you in a way, giving you information that sounds really, really, really credible, but they obfuscate the actual evidence. And they have never, none of them in the truth is sphere, David Chandler, Wayne Costi, Barbara Honegger, everybody that you see, Jason Burmis, everybody who's going, even
Burmis,
what's his face, James Corbett.
Yeah, I was going to ask about
none
James
of those
Corbett.
guys. None of those guys have tried to even refute any of the evidence that Dr. Wood presents, because they can't refute evidence. It's empirical evidence that you can go and verify yourself. Go to Dr. Wood's website, drjudywood.com, or wheredidthetowers.go.com. Both of those, it's well referenced with all the source material and everything. You just need to take the time to go work through it yourself. But unfortunately, people want to outsource their thinking to some sort of talking head that's got some sort of credential or whatever, and that's where everything fails, man. That's the problem. People are too easily entertained with their conspiracy-tainment instead of doing the actual research. And that's one of the things that they also did with people during COVID. Can you remember those news flashes? Is don't do your own research.
Oh yeah, they love that. We'll do it for you. We'll read it for you. Don't read those papers. You don't understand the science in those papers. like you can't comprehend what's going on.
Precisely. And the papers that Dr. Wood filed, the papers that she co-wrote, debunking the papers that Stephen E. Jones wrote, Greg Jenkins, who had that ambush interview with her and all of that kind of aspects. And this is also a very nice podcast at the top over there. That's where 9/11 Planes Revisionist and I went through in depth all the 9/11 plane narratives and the repivoting of the guys. Virginia is for conspiracy lovers. That's a gentleman who was in Panama when he was a kid. William Ramsey is the guy who wrote the numerology stuff about Aleister Crowley and all of that. So
this one,
it's all out there. People just need to go invest some time. It's been 24 years. There's more than enough information out there. And step one, read Dr. Judy Wood's book, listen to her 2012 Breakthrough Energy Conference presentation. And if you want to watch a documentary that covers the World Trade Center, Shanksville, and the Pentagon, then just watch 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality. It's 3 hours long. It'll just blow your mind, because it covers all the disinformation around every plane narrative, all the thermite nukes and everything. It's your crash course. 9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality. And then
9/11 Alchemy Facing Reality. Read the books of Dr. Judy Wood, or the book Where the Towers Go. Definitely visit your Substack. You have a great Substack. Everything organized in videos and into different categories as well. You have a Rumble channel, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
And you're also on X, where I got wind of you and your research. And definitely go follow you there. You're very active on there. You interact with people. People ask questions. You're ready with videos or podcasts to answer them. That's where I learned about Rebecca Roth. That someone was asking about the phone calls and Mossad agents or whatever. And you did give some good refuting information about who she is. And it was a great debunk, that video. But yeah, I mean, we just touched the surface. We hardly got into anything, and here we are 3 hours. I mean, we didn't talk about the phone calls, right? We didn't talk about the Pentagon.
If you want to talk about the Pentagon, you just go onto my Rumble. I've got a
Okay.
playlist there on the Pentagon. Go listen to the testimony of Adam Eisenberg, who was an infantryman who was he spent 240 hours at the Pentagon during cleanup. He removed bodies, he removed debris and everything. There was no plane there, and he's been ostracized by the 9/11 Truth Movement. And we're talking about Richard Gage, David Chandler, all the people that's on the lineup this week in DC, talking about a full day on the Pentagon. All of those people have shunned him. And it's not just Adam Eisenberg. There's two other soldiers. The one soldier was stationed at the tomb of the unknown soldier, and another gentleman who was also in the same infantry group. He was helping with the generators and everything. OEF soldier. I had a discussion with him as well. That's also been posted on my Rumble. And these three guys, all three of them say no plane at the Pentagon, but somebody like David Chandler, who's championing controlled demolition for Building 7 and the Twin Towers, he's pushing an actual plane at the Pentagon. So how do you get those two together?
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah. All right. So what do you have planned for the future? You have a symposium coming up on 9/11. What time?
Yes.
What time will that be at?
Oh, that's running at. Let me just quickly get my timing correct.
Right,
because we've got guys from South Africa. We've got guys from Canada. We've got guys from America. So I just quickly want to find this, and I can just tell you exactly what time it is.
No
Let
problem.
me just find this.
Definitely can't wait for that one. And you said Eisenberg is going to be on there as well?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Never even heard of him, and I'd love to hear what he has to say.
And he's actually writing a book, and he's got all the receipts on all these guys and truth. So it's going to be 1 p.m. PST Pacific time, 3 p.m. CST, 4 p.m. EST, and 10 p.m. Central African time, 9 o'clock UK. So it's going to be Dr. Morgan Reynolds, Matthew Nouse, who assisted Gage and sold Dr. Judy Wood's book to him, Adam Eisenberg, the Pentagon whistleblower, Mark Conlon, known as 9/11 Planes Research, Keith NPNK, Math Easy Solutions, and then me. So
very cool. Very cool. One more question before we go, and thank you so much for your time. I just remembered there was that one Boeing contractor that apparently had a video for 20 years on YouTube. It was set to private, and then he published it a couple of years ago or 5 years ago or during COVID, where he was on a boat looking at the World Trade Center, filmed the plane going over him with the sound, and went all the way to the building. First of all, he's a contractor, right? And he's a Boeing so we can't really believe what he's doing. Are we saying that this is in action? We are seeing the 3D volumetric holographic
that guy was most probably one of the guys who wanted to see how realistic the projection was. That's my speculation, because a lot of people pulled that thing apart, because he said he uploaded that to YouTube in 2001 and forgot it on unlisted. But sorry, when did YouTube actually started? That was in 2004, 2005.
Oh yeah,
so
that's right.
So people have debunked his story around it. So there's huge issues around that guy's credibility as well.
Definitely. Well, Norman, this is amazing. It went by really quick. There's just so much information. I mean, the knowledge that you have with all this is impressive, and I wish you all the luck out there. We're there to support as much as we can, and hopefully the audience will do their own deep dives into your work, and Dr. Judy Wood as well will put in the Breakthrough Energy conference she has, her book, your Substack, and all that, just so people can really look into this and question why this angle is ignored. They're not refuting it with other evidence, they're just ignoring it. Right. Awesome, man. Well, thanks again. Is there anything else you'd like us to know, or anything we forgot?
No, thank you for wanting to have a conversation, man. It's important that people hear a side that they are told not to listen to, because there are nefarious actors that are how did Elon Musk stated when he just took over X, he was talking at a place where they were asking about the funders and the advertisers moving, and he basically said, all I see is a bunch of people acting as if they are doing good, but in actual fact they are doing evil. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. Because if if the 9/11 truth movement embraced Dr. Morgan Reynolds and Dr. Judy Wood 20 years ago, I think we would have been in a lot better place.
Agreed. And I mean, the best way to get stuff out there is to share it and not be afraid to share it, especially these days where we see AI coming out and humanoid robots. Why is this any crazier? Especially from a military industrial complex.
It's a weird, scary precipice that we're standing on, because even now it's going to be even more difficult to differentiate reality between fiction, man. It's going to be, the finding truth is going to become even more difficult now with AI coming in.
Yeah, exactly. No one's going to believe any videos coming out or any audio coming out. They're going to say, that was AI, and they won't believe in anything, which is probably what they want, right?
Yep.
Cool, man. I love this. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with that symposium. It should be really great.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, everyone. So thank you for tuning in to the Uncovering Anomalies podcast. Topher had to go out. I guess we went over a bit too long. Yeah. But yeah, visit us on X at UAP the podcast, and we're on all the video platforms, including YouTube, just in case we get censored, and on all the podcasting platforms as well. So, yep. Thank you for everyone for their time, and we'll see you all next week.